So, hello everybody. My name is Ahskance. I've obviously been putting out videos regarding to the controversy and stuff that's going on. So I do want to make a bit of a forward. Before we go into this, they're going to talk about some stuff, and the reason I'm doing this is because this is going to be on a Twitch stream that these guys did earlier today and a VOD that I don't even know how many people are even going to look at this. I don't know if they're actually going to like go through it and chop it up and put it on a website for people to look at, but they actually address situations here. So this is information that people need to hear, and I figured this is too important to avoid. So I'm going to go through this. Literally, I have gone through it before, so I've heard it. I mean, I've heard a run through of it once, but I don't think I'll have to add a lot of context or just additional information that I happen to know that maybe they're not going to put out because they're representatives of the company. But yeah, so there's like a 30 to 45 minute section of Q&A, and then I think they did like a game where they played, but they also still took questions. So I think he wanted to kind of like get out of Q&A mode and kind of play just so we're not sitting there talking a lot, whereas I think Mr. Conway wanted to keep having a discussion even though it'd been like an hour. So they kept talking, but they did have some gameplay. So they're a little distracted, but still answering. So we're going to go through this. But in terms of a forward, I thought about making a video for this, and honestly, I just decided not to. But to give you an extremely abbreviated concept, before the CC Exodus happened, there were like 4 or 5 explosions that went off in the CC Discord. And it was bad. I'm going to give you basically 3 versions of CC that exist. And then I'm going to give you, kind of a wargaming, what they were like concept. And then I'm just going to give you a really abridged kind of feel story of what it was and where we are. And then we're going to hit this. So in terms of CCs, I've been here for about 7 months. I've seen basically 3 categories: passionate CCs, calm CCs, and ghosts. The passionate CCs are the ones that they will throw paragraphs at you. They will start swearing profusely. They are the ones that are going to absolutely react to something and be extremely passionate and extremely pointed and extremely down your throat about it. Because that's just who they are. They're very passionate, they're invested, they're high energy people. And if you ever had a conversation with somebody like this, that's the person that could be yelling in a room, and they're yelling so loud it's hard to hear anything else. Just to give you kind of an idea. Then you have calm CCs. Now, calm does not mean happy. Calm means calm. So a calm CC will basically just say, you fucked up. You screwed this up. You've done wrong. You need to fix this. Like pretty blunt, straightforward kick to the balls. Don't fuck with this. Like they don't mess around. They just tell it to you. But they're not going to fill up the room. They're just going to be blunt, say their thing, and then they've said their thing. And if you have follow-up questions for them, they'll keep talking. But yeah, like Jingles is probably the best version of a calm CC that I can tell you. He'll literally just, you fucked up. Anybody that's listened to some Jingles videos, he'll be absolutely straight with you. And then there are ghosts, and I literally mean that. There are probably like 100 or 150 CCs. I don't know. Just there's a ton of people in the Discord that never say anything. They're ghosts. So I don't know why that is. I would postulate that it's because it's just so loud that what would they say? I think somebody had a saying that they posted, which was like, it's not that somebody doesn't have an opinion, but if everybody else is yelling, then they're just not going to speak up. They're not going to try to talk over whatever, so they just don't say anything. And then wargaming. Now, there's been a lot of stuff about wargaming is mistreating their CCs, wargaming is evil, wargaming is all sorts of stuff. Feel what you're going to feel. But the long and the short of it is, in the last 7 months I've been there, wargaming doesn't exist. That means that there is one guy that's like the head of the program, that it's his job. So he answers questions. He is available. He's there. He's universally loved. His name is Shania. There's another guy that also helps out, which I think he might be an assistant, but I don't know. He tries to be helpful, but he's not there as much. And then for the most part, it's a ghost town. There's nothing else. So when people say like, you know, they're talking down to you on this or they're talking whatever, there's almost no interaction. So please don't think that behind the scenes it's a bunch of people just going like, spreadsheet says. You could go weeks or potentially months without having a conversation about a problem, because wargaming checked out a long time ago, prior to the CC thing. So just to give you a really brief recap of prior to the CC and then where it is now, before we go into the Q&A, because I think it's going to give you kind of like a base foundation before we go into this. And the Q&A thing's probably going to run long, just being frank with you. If you could split it up into like 4 areas, there was rage, there was shock, there was recovery, and then there's talking. So rage, 4 or 5 explosions touched off within about a week to a week and a half. CCs were absolutely beside themselves, pissed off. I think at that point it was just like they were memeing literally in channels like, when's the next fuck up gonna happen? Because something happened and then 2 days later something else happened, and then a day later something else happened, and then a few hours later something else happened, and it's just like the whole world was shaking. And it was a really bad place to be. I actually considered leaving the CC program 2 days before the Exodus, not because I wanted to make a point, but because it was such a bad place to be that I didn't even want to be part of it. It was toxic as fuck, as people may say. I didn't want to read it. I didn't want to hear about it. And it's like, I can ignore a problem only so far. I didn't even want to be affiliated with it because it was just awful. So anyway, then part 2, shock. Little white mouse left. People were stunned. Wargaming was stunned. CCs were stunned. People didn't know what the fuck to say. They just didn't. So then CC started, you know, posting paragraphs talking about how annoyed they were, this is wrong, etc. People started leaving, you know. Passionate CVs are telling people passionately why they're not happy about it. They left. Calm CCs are, you fucked up. You fucked up real bad, and we can't continue this relationship, basically. And they left. There were ghost CCs that disappeared. They just, you know, drifted off, but some people noticed. And then after that, there's kind of a recovery phase. Well, what's that? The people that stayed, I mean, they were coming to grips with, are they going to stay? What's next? What's the thing that happens now? Like, what happens? And don't misunderstand, there are still passionate CCs. There are still calm CCs. There are still ghost CCs. But the passionate ones that stayed are passionate. And they started outlining, you know, lists. These are our demands. I mean, which is basically in line with the stuff that was being stated before the Exodus. But it was being collated into like, this is the list. But at the same time, I don't know, it's like an armistice or something, right? And you know, the building was on fire, and everybody just kind of looked around and decided to put the fire out. And then once the fire was out, yes, people were saying like, these are our demands, but if anybody like lit a spark, you know, before it could roar into a fire, a bunch of people, whoa, 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 you know, they stamped on it, they stopped it. Let's talk. You know, let's not, whatever. You know, me personally, I called for respect. And I understand that people that feel they've been disrespected for months or even years, it's really hard to say like, what, I'm supposed to respect somebody that disrespects me? But unfortunately, you have to come at it from a situation where people are respectful if you want to get anything done. And not only do we have to respect wargaming, but they have to respect us. It has to go both ways. But you can't always sit waiting for the other person to make the first move. So I called for it, other people called for it, and since that time, occasionally, you know, somebody gets upset about something, but before it turns into a fire, it gets, hey, take a moment, take a breath, think about it, just back up. Let's try to talk about this like adults, and we talk and we get through it. So it's been much calmer, and that's going to be basically where we are now, talking. CCs are talking to Wargaming, and Wargaming is talking back. There are more Wargaming people on the Discord than I've seen in months actually talking. They'll either step into a general conversation, just, shooting the shit with people. They'll respond to situations or concerns. Now, that's not to say that they've hammered out an action plan that's going to last for the next 6 to 10 months, or that they've decided how they're going to fundamentally just 180 their company. It's a multi-million dollar company. If they do reduce or even kill like the gambling aspect of the game, if they get rid of all the loot boxes, all the random bundles, they're going to have to completely redesign their financial structuring. You don't do that in a week. So CC's, the people on the server understand that this isn't something that they can do in a day. Now, they do want a roadmap. They want to be like kept in the loop. But at the moment, Wargaming's still figuring a lot of shit out. But I can tell you that instead of people screaming it, instead of being a toxic place where nobody is, there's actually conversation, which is important. Because if people are at a table, you can negotiate at a table. But when it's just people yelling at each other, that doesn't go anywhere. That doesn't go anywhere at all. And that it can't be that. It can't return to that. It can't be that. So that's kind of where we are now. I know some people on the forums and stuff, they want to know what's the progress, what's going on. That's what's going on. Talking is going on. Discourse is going on. Exchange is going on, which is great. So with all that said, this little intro took a lot longer than I was thinking. I was actually considering recording this as a standalone video, but I'm giving you this as a foundation before we go into the Q&A, because the Q&A kind of touches on one or two of those areas at points, and I think having that background is useful. So at this point, Wargaming did a stream earlier today where I guess there were supposed to be 2 other hosts, but Mr. Conway and Crisanto were like, we'll take this one for you folks. And they took the stream and they just decided they were literally going to talk with chat, answer questions, do the thing for a while. And I think they go for like 45 minutes before they end up playing a game, and they continue talking, and then Bogsy is going to show up, and I think they're just kind of like playing and having fun shenanigans until the end of the stream. So when Bogsy shows up is when I'm going to stop, because I don't know if there's any more super relevant information, but we're going to start at the start. And like most Ahskance Reacts videos, we're just literally going to go through it. If I stop to add some additional context, I will, because that's what I do. I hope this won't run forever, but please understand that this is literally like an hour and 15 minutes of information here, and questions are answered as they come. It's not a structured thing. They're literally talking with chat. But I think some of the harder hitting stuff is in the earlier section, so yeah. Let's see. This is how legends are made. Can I make this?
Hello everybody, and welcome to our weekly stream here today with the twins. I hope you know me by now. My name is Chrysanthus, and with me here is the one and only, the beautiful Mr. Conway. Hello.
Good evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you may be. Nice to see you today.
Yes, of course, we are aware of all of your feedback that we have on the channel, so I hope we get to address at least some of the points that we already also talked about on the forums and so on. But one thing I want to say straight up from the beginning: please be respectful in chat. Don't misbehave. We completely understand that you might be unhappy with certain decisions that have been made in the past. But still, if you want to have, like a discussion with us, I ask you to just, be respectful, express your opinion. You're always open to do this here. Just do it in a way that is not insulting, right? Because that won't really help you, and it won't really be able for us to answer this comment. So it's just a starting off note from my side. So, Mr. Conway, what are we going to do today?
So obviously we're going to have a bit of a conversation with you, answer some questions in chat. We'll probably have to ban a few of you along the way, but this is the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
I'm just going to ask really quick, is this loud enough? Hopefully it's loud enough. If you guys can just let me know in the chat if it's not like extremely different from my voice.
But I hope we can have like a civil discourse here in Twitch chat. Then we're going to play some games, I believe, of this World of Warships, I believe it's called. And then for the second hour of the stream, Bogsy, who you may know from our past King of the Sea broadcast, or his Twitch channel at twitch.tv/BogsyTime, will be joining us for a game or two. Probably.
Yeah, his podcast. I can highly recommend this.
Yes. I actually listened to the episode that you did with him when I was out with the dog yesterday.
For a second time, yes. Actually, we were talking about ghosts of the past, basically all of the things that we had or used to have in World of Warships and that are gone, for better or for worse. That was very, very interesting because I've been playing this game for a very long time, just like Borla, for example. And just the things you remember about mechanics and how they used to work was a very interesting topic. So, yeah, if you want to go, check it out. It was a fun episode. It's unfortunately over 100 minutes, so don't blame me.
Yes, look, Enzo Parker says, Mr. Conway, why such a good mood? Obviously, the last few days have been a little bit trying for us here. For a variety of reasons. But it is not our first rodeo, and we actually, it's not as though we were designated the sacrificial lambs of the stream. We volunteered and decided to let Taki and Bloodmist, and we're going to run today's stream, have an evening off to come and hang out with you because, we feel it's important to have a conversation with you.
Yes. Heide says over 100 minutes. I will listen to it as a podcast, and it is a podcast, so that's the fitting theme. But I think let's see what questions we have in general. I mean, the elephant in the room is, of course, currently the situation that we have with CCs leaving the program. We also have the topic of Missouri. So if you have any questions about this, or for example, Euro, who got removed from the CC program, which is simply based on the rules that we have for CCs and their behavior. Euro unfortunately made a mistake here, and we had to, sometimes we have to make these decisions. And even though we like working with Euro, when somebody makes these statements, he will have to, face the consequences of that. So
at least when he manages to keep a hold of his passport. But he fucked up. Regardless of his apology, which I thought was great that he posted one. Obviously, that is not behavior that we can and want to tolerate.
Yes, Jovanka says here also have a topic of loot boxes. Just a reminder. Yes. Okay. Look, let me get into a little bit of the nitty and gritty. So over the last few days, a lot of different topics have been brought up, and I hope you understand that these are topics that are very complex and where there's no very quick solution. We're a company. We have a business running here. We, create World of Warships, all of the plans around it, all of the things that we have set up for the future. And yes, we do also have to make money to keep everything running and to develop new things. And that means that I fully understand that you would love to hear, things that we're planning to change based on what has happened not only the last few days, but the last few weeks and months. But right now, there is nothing that I can show to you in terms of an action plan, what we're going to do in the foreseeable future. But I hope that we will have more to talk about at some point. But it is a very complex topic, and that's the reason why we can't sometimes just sit here after a day of discussion and then suddenly have everything prepared. I hope you can understand this. For the topic of Missouri, we already made some changes to the plan that we had with selling Missouri through random bundles, where we now added the option that, first of all, you can get access to the Missouri by playing a short web campaign. I'm not sure whether everybody understood what that means in terms of web campaign. If you remember, we actually had a short Bismarck campaign that you could interact with on the portal or in-game, on the in-game news, right? And that gave you missions to do. And it will be very similar for Missouri. It's going to be a theme.
I just want to say two things about this real quick. Well, this is my chat. This is their chat. My chat, somebody asked, how do you know he's racist? Basically, there were screenshots from his Discord that leaked out online. He said some nasty shit. He said some really nasty shit. And part of the rules of the CC program is don't say nasty shit. And, well, he did. So he was removed. So I don't know his content, but he was removed. As far as what he's saying here with the web-based thing, I do want to point out, some people are assuming that this is going to be like the Puerto Rico grind. The web-based thing was designed to give out some flags and some tokens and shit. It wasn't designed as a ship grind. they basically tacked the Missouri thing onto it. So it's not some obnoxious whatever. I think it was quoted as being 60 battles, but that's as a worst case estimate. So like it's assuming that if somebody needs to get 5 wins, they're going to have to play 10 games because the average person wins 1, loses 1. So if you do it in co-op, you just win 5 times. The long and the short of it is, like the little web-based thing, it's not supposed to be a hell grind. It's more supposed to be like a thematic flavor thing. And they're like, oh shit, well, how can we do something here? And they put the thing on that. So it was there. It was readily available. They used that as a vehicle for giving this alternate version. But as has already been stated by others, yes, there's a time gating to it. It takes 2 weeks before you can finish it, which means that if people wanted the Missouri, it is more likely that they're picking the random bundle option because it's fucking there. So that's one of the reasons why putting out videos about the fact that there's a web version, a portal version, is good, because it could save people money. There are people that could end up gambling away 150, 200, God knows whatever the hell the numbers are, because they haven't shown what the random bundle is. But if there's an option to get the ship for less, or at least for a flat amount of money, well, then that's something that needs to be put out. If you think it's too much, if you think it's extortion, hey, I get it. It'd be nice if all the shit was free. But in this specific case, getting the word out about the fact that there's a web thing is literally something CC's fought for. I said, Americans hate haggling. Can you provide it for a set price? Can you at least give like a buyout option? Can you give just a blanket thing? And that's what they did. Now, realistically, what they could have done was give that buyout price at $150, because they literally think the ship is worth more than other premiums in terms of like sentimental value or sales ability. However, they could have like done that up front, and then after you finish the web missions, you got a discount where it was discounted to the $90 or whatever the hell it is. They didn't choose to do that. This is the way that they went about it. But again, please let people know about the web-based thing so that less people interact with random bundles, because random bundles suck. Anyway, I'm going to go back to this.
Themed set of missions that are very easy to do. I think internal estimation is like 60 battles for a very, very average player. For somebody like me, I would estimate it probably takes.
And really quick, some people have talked about the Puerto Rico thing. The Puerto Rico grind sucked. I think I bought 3 stages worth of stuff because I recognized that the later stages were going to suck. But I do actually have the Puerto Rico. Just for lulz, I do have a clanmate that actually did the entire Puerto Rico grind for free on 2 accounts, which is insane. But it's just kind of like a fun trivia fact. One more thing. Why do you think they made it that you have to redeem the Missouri through customer support? They are going to answer that question, but I can go ahead and tell you. Whenever they're going to do something in the game, they've already coded that shit probably like 3 months ago. And again, that's going to be talked about in this Q&A. It was coded, it was bug tested, it was rechecked, it was public test servered, and then it was live. So they went through processes to make sure that the game doesn't break. And if they had to make this Missouri doesn't reveal until you finish the web campaign thing, that would be adding additional code to a live server game. So if you screw with the code on a live server and suddenly like something goes wrong and people's doubloons disappear, or ships disappear, or God knows what, like you finish the web campaign and then you can't access anything. Like, if a bug crops up on a live server, everybody gets affected. So the answer is they have an established process of, if you do the thing, but you want to use doubloons, well, we can't write it into the game because this is like last minute, holy shit, how do we try to help? How do we make a thing? Contact customer service and they can get you. So some people are going to look at it as a hurdle, but literally that's like, well, you could pay cash because you could do that online on the website. They figured that out. But on the game, they didn't want to screw up the code. So that's their workaround. All right.
Less than the half of those amount of battles. And then you will be able to purchase it straight up for the regular price, or roughly the regular price, of a tier 9 ship, which will be, I think in the case of Missouri, it's 19.5k doubloons, including the port slot.
I don't think the information's been posted, Master.
You will also be able to purchase it through the premium shop. Now, the problem with doubloons is that and that's the technical limitation we've been talking about in the past few days, is there is no way for us, for a player, to create like a personalized offer that would be tied to that web campaign, because it was not initially planned like this, and the update is already live. So it's very hard to do this right now. So what we offer is that you can contact customer support as soon as you're done with those missions. And then you can, if you have the 19.5k doubloons in your account, you can trade it through our customer support for the Missouri. That's currently the plan. So that's the changes we already made, at least for this very specific scenario with the Missouri. So I hope that answers at least some questions in terms of how can you get your hands on Missouri. If you don't want to use random bundles, you can purchase it straight up through the premium shop, or you can use doubloons through our customer support once that web campaign is live and you're through it.
Fatty Matt Fadas says, would it not have been easier for you to just release a credit-leveled Missouri I-45 or VE Day version and nipped all this shizzle in the bud? In retrospect, probably. Yes.
So, what else do we have? Will ships, particularly premium ships, which have no ASW gimmicks, get them in the future? Currently, these ships have no way to counter subs. Right now, it is not. It really depends on the ship, right? It's a ship-specific choice right now whether it has ASW or not. And just for chat, if you're not sure what ASW means, it's anti-submarine warfare. So any kind of armament that would be able to get to submarines as soon as they're submerged. Now, right now, at least, because things can change, right now the plan is that not every ship is going to have that, which follows the principle of our game that you're not always going to be able to damage the other ship in every scenario, right? Be it, for example, through range or different other mechanics. World of Warship is a team-based game, and certain ships have, certain tools, for example, be it radar, hydro, smoke, and so on. And this is just one more aspect where ASW is going to be following that kind of pattern, at least for now. We're still in testing, right? Right now, they have been available in co-op for a week, submarines. And we were able to see already a start of how players interact with it on the live server, and starting yesterday or today, depending on which server you're playing on, they're going to be in ranked battles. And there we will see how the different ships will interact with submarines over a certain period of time, where players are going to take it very seriously to get the best performance out of their ships and to progress to the next stars, ranks, and leagues. So we'll have to then make decisions what we're going to potentially improve, what we're going to change. So, I can't make any promises about this, but at least for now, the plan is to not give every single ship anti-submarine warfare. And that is also not only based on that certain ships simply just didn't have it, but also for gameplay reasons.
Yep.
So I do just want to point out to this, when CVs were put on live server, they were thrown right into random battles, and people had to deal with it. And CVs were not balance tested yet. They were bug tested, but they weren't balance tested, which is why CVs have, well, frankly, they've never recovered in terms of reputation. People still hate them. When they decided to do the sub thing, they decided to do it completely different. They had a lot of internal testing, then a PTS test, then internal testing, then more sub battle thing. They've been doing this for 3 years in the background. This is the reason why they put it on live server, but not in random battles. You can already see how controversial the decision is that some ships don't have anti-sub warfare and people don't like it. Imagine if this was already in random battles and you just had to fucking deal with it. So they didn't do it that way. They're using ranked as a little optional side grade test mode thing. And if I understand correctly, this ranked season is actually going to go on for 2 months or something. So they might update and tweak things as they go. I would assume that they will, but that's literally why they have not released this as subs are done, because they're not. They want to see how people interact so they can figure out what they have to do. You're lost about the hype around the ship. It has historical significance. It's where basically World War II ended. They signed a treaty, I think, on the ship is what it was, but also because the Missouri had been around for so long that people that missed it, they wanted it. It's considered a high-value ship. Honestly, get an Iowa. Iowa's a great ship. It's a tech tree ship. It's free. It doesn't have radar, but you have teammates, so is what it is. All right, so I'm going to go back to the thing.
William Feldman has an unrelated question. He's asking, is there a way to move my Friesland to the Netherlands, or can I only swap it for Groningen? What about my Friesland commander? Can I move it to the Netherlands? So, no, there is no way to move Friesland to the Groningen. That's the reason the Groningen exists. But it is an exact copy of the Friesland in every way, apart from its name. So if you would like to have the Friesland in the Dutch tech tree, you can. It will just be called Groningen. Your captain won't transfer, but you have the chance to use her to play up some nice new Dutch captains, which you can then also use on the cruises. That's why we kind of implemented this option, because she's a Dutch ship, and we want to be able to give you the chance to have her in the Dutch tree and use her with Dutch captains. But we can't give you the option of just moving Friesland, because we would not be able to let you move the European special captain jersey Schwurzi. Simply because we simply cannot have like a special commander designed for one nation available to some players in another nation, because then we'd have to take that one specific commander and his special quirks, perks, skills, and talents into account for balancing forevermore. That's why we made the solution that you can kind of choose: do I want to keep Friesland as it is, or do I want to have a Dutch Friesland? And then you just move it and you have it.
Yes, I think there was a question. Oh, now it moved. About
just because people are talking about this Missouri versus Iowa. I don't know all the differences to the two, but I do know the Iowa has like a 10% more speed. I think it has a faster rudder shift, or at least a smaller turning circle. I mean, they're different ships, but the Iowa is considered to be a very good ship. The Missouri has radar, which is basically its gimmick, that and the whole credit thing, but they've removed the credit thing. It's a normal ship for earning purposes if you acquire it now. So effectively, if you're buying the Missouri, you're buying it for historical significance because you really want to. You're buying it because it's a ship that's got radar, although they're adding other battleships to the game that have radar as well. So if you want that play experience, it could be covered through another avenue. And then lastly, people want it because they're collectors, that they didn't play the game 2 or 4 years ago or whatever when it was available, and suddenly it's available again. You're going to have people that are going to jump in and buy the thing. So it's considered a high value ship, but you don't need it. It's not a must own. It's not an amazing piece of equipment. It's a ship. All right, so I'm going to go back to this.
Flatulent Force is asking, is there a button to reset all commanders? If so, where, please? So I don't have the buttons here right now, but Mr. Conway, if you can show my screen, I can show this.
What do you mean you don't have buttons?
I don't have buttons on my
Your button thing?
on my button thing, exactly, my stream deck. You can do this actually in the...
There we go, buttons.
Thank you very much. So if we go over here, if you go to the portal, go to the update 0.10.7 submarines in ranked battles article, you then scroll down here and you have these different topics, right? And you go to changes to commander skills. And you will see all of the different changes to commander skills. And in that tab, you have the reset all commander skills button. If you click that, it will be automatically reset for all commanders.
Make sure you're logged in or it won't work.
Yes.
And there was a follow-up question to the Friesland. Yes, you can own both. You can just purchase the Groningen, and then you have both.
Yeah. Any chance next ranked season could be sub versus CV only? There is always a chance, but this scenario sounds very, very, very unlikely. So I don't know where this question is coming from, but we usually don't do class-specific ranked seasons.
Obnoxious Potato has a good question. Why did some CCs have the impression that their feedback or input would be actually acted upon, not ignored? Usually when a group of people gets disillusioned and quit like they did, it is because expectations were not met all. Did the CCs have unreasonable expectations? If so, why do you think they did? Thanks. Well, you have to realize that the community contributor program has, existed for many years, and kind of over the time it's gone through some different iterations. We've always welcomed feedback from the community contributors, but we've never been in a position where we wanted to say or did say like, hey, the feedback of this group of people is more important than the feedback of, other people in the game. And so we welcomed the feedback, and we tried to give feedback on feedback sometimes, but that's one of the failings that we didn't do enough of, like when we got suggestions that we didn't come back and say like, hey, yes, this suggestion is good because of this reason, or we can't implement it because of this reason. And that's one of the problems. But the expectation of feedback being acted upon is not one that we wanted to create, and that's was never a realistic thing.
it's a very complex situation. If you just consider, like, we've been working for wargaming for a very long time, and also for different games.
I know they're still going, but I do want to say, when I joined the program, I joined the server, I was told about the program's benefits. Benefits are, little perks. They give you doubloons, test ships, NDA information, whatever. Basic things. I was never told, you are the person that represents your community. You are the person that advocates for your community. I was never told that. I was never given the impression that I was going to be that. I was never given the impression that I was supposed to be that. I think there were community contributors that did, that genuinely felt that they were supposed to represent their community. And I've only been in this thing for 7 months. If I understand correctly, back in the day, like years ago, there were some people that said that that's how it felt, that they felt like they were part of the thing and did represent their community, and their feedback was more important because of that personal relationship that they had with the developers and stuff like that and the staff. And I think that as that personal relationship started to dissolve, they didn't have the impact through feedback that they used to have. And I think that was a real problem for people that were in that era. I was not. I've never been in that era. My personal belief was, hey, if I get to play some like test ship CVs or something, I can communicate directly to a dev. I hope they'll listen, because I hope I'll be able to frame my points and make it useful and helpful feedback. But I never expected anybody to bow to my will. There were some CCs that were like, they felt extremely knowledgeable about the game, extremely, very, very certain of their feedback, and they were just expecting, why isn't this happening? And that was a problem. That was literally a pain point for people. So I'm just updating you, and we'll continue on with the response.
But when we were starting in Europe, we had a very small community contributor program that was specifically for Europe. There was no actual interaction with developers. It was people like Mr. Conway or me, just talking with CCs, helping where we can, providing some opportunities, helping with giveaways, providing test chips, these kind of aspects. So there wasn't really that expectation. But I think it was in end of 2017, beginning of 2019, when we started creating the global CC program, where every region would come together, everything was unified. You suddenly had a Discord where you had direct contact to developers. And we also arranged things like the CC Summit. We have specific feedback channels. We have internal Q&A channels where, every streamer could just come and ask questions, and we would try to provide the best possible answer. And it's the same with you, right? We always encourage, give us feedback. Like, nobody here will say, please keep your feedback to yourself. We want to hear your feedback. But the feedback from CCs, as well as the feedback from players, is going to be part of making a decision. Just because we have, some CCs coming to us, and that is not meant in any negative way, but it's going to not be always representative for every player. It's definitely going to be representative within their communities. But we always have to take a look at the bigger picture, and we will always also take a look at stats. So it is the decision whether we're going to change something is based on a lot of different factors. Feedback is one of them, but not the sole reason. And I can totally understand that over time, if your suggestions are not being taken on board or your feedback is not really acted upon, that frustration is being created. And sometimes there might be, for example, a language or a culture barrier in terms of, we have a global program and we try to answer as many things as possible. We try to, be nice as much as we can. But even Conway or me might sometimes be in a situation where we, want to make a funny comment, or we think that it's very obvious, and then it might be taken the wrong way. And it is complex. And I'm very sorry, when CCs feel that way or feel like they have to leave the program. We've been working with them for a very, very long time, like for many of them, like for the entire time that I've been here in Wargaming. And I hope we can, fix some of the things that were addressed. But I'm not sure they're going to be able to fix, for example, expectations of, hey, if I'm a streamer and I give you feedback, that the company will act on this. We have a lot of players, and we try to make as many as possible happy, because that's our purpose, to make this game run for as long as possible, give it a future, provide you with enough content and fun to have in the game. but it will not always be possible to make every single person happy. And that's just the reality of business.
Yeah, Skybar says one of the comments from CCs was that the feedback was belittling and aggressive. Is there a need for internal attitudes to change? I think it very much depends on the kind of feedback that's given, and it also have to remember that the kind of relationship within the community contributor program between the people on the contributors and the people on our side is very different from like if you as a player a message customer support where you should get it, and you should be able to expect like a friendly, polite answer every single time. Whereas in the CC program, the conversations get a lot more casual and a lot more personal. And there's a bit of a cultural divide as well. I don't know if you know many Russian people, but they tend to be quite direct. They tend to say what they mean. And I think this is one of the things that, clashes a little bit with some people, that the kind of expectation is there, that the communication is the same. And that, I think, it degenerated a little bit, especially over the past few weeks. And this is what happens if you put people together. People can also disagree and get into a little bit of a tiff, and it's unfortunate, but that's just one of the things that I think is part of life, and that also the contributors have to realize as part of the program that the level of relationship is very different to external players.
And this is not to say that we didn't make mistakes. I just want to make that very clear.
No, absolutely not.
And we do apologize when we see like, okay, we made a mistake. Especially with Little White Mouse, I think there was a lot of things that went wrong from very different angles, unfortunately, and I'm very sorry that it played out the way it did. We tried to apologize, and for example, this is something I don't really get when people say like, wargaming is trying to offer a scapegoat when somebody's just messaging a person, says like, I'm really sorry, I feel bad for what happened, and wasn't meant in a negative way. But I do understand that things build up over time, and then sometimes it's a little bit too late.
Yeah.
That's we try. I know that sometimes it doesn't really come across like this. We do always have to be professional in our communication, and sometimes it works better than others. And I think this is definitely something where we can improve. And I read here from Kanonenfutter, why is it not possible for Wargaming to say sorry for our behavior? It depends on the case. If there's something where we see, oh no, we made a huge mistake, as we, for example, did with the Yukon situation, right? We do apologize and we try to make amends, but we're also like we work as a business, and not always is it possible to make the partner happy with everything they want to have. And I'm very sorry about this, but that's unfortunately how it is. So I hope that people understand this, and we'll definitely try to improve. This is definitely on our agenda.
Andy J is asking, what happens when your PEGI game rating goes up? I don't think anything happens. We are not a game. We're not like, while I think there are lots of comments around that our game is marketed to children, we don't market our game to children. It's available and allowed for children to play it because it doesn't have gore, violence, those kind of things. That's why we have that PEGI rating. But I think you're going to struggle to find many underage players, and our average player is older than me.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer stuff because this is recorded, and obviously I have chat. This is their chat. My chat is over here. Just a few things. So VoxDo, feedback that's never listened to. This is not correct. It may feel like it, but it's not correct. How often do they deviate from their actual game plan to swerve off to what people are requesting or suggesting, etc.? I'm going to be honest, not very often, but it does happen. Secondaries were fixed. Took 8 months to get to a point where people are pretty excited about them. Back in January, they had the commander rework. Secondaries weren't where people wanted. People bitched. They let it sit. They collected data. People bitched. Did they implement a change? I think they increased base German accuracy. People stopped bitching. It got to a point where they've adjusted secondaries to where I believe secondaries are the most accurate for German battleships than they've ever been in the game. And according to people I've talked to, secondaries actually feel good now. That's a response to feedback. But it took 8 months. Yeah. They're going to say later in this, I don't remember exactly where, but they've coded stuff almost 4 to 5 months in advance, or they're actively coding something that's 5 to 6 months down the line right now. And when they implement something in the game, I was told by a Wargaming employee that they have a 2 patch cycle minimum to collect data. They will not touch something for 2 patches to collect raw data so that they can have numbers that they can use to crunch in terms of their balancing profile. So if it takes 2 months for something to collate data, and then they're programming shit 5 and 6 months down the line, that's 7-8 months. It's 7-8 months later, you have better secondaries. So I understand how it can feel like this. Believe me, I do. But it's not correct. People say this shit because they're not getting instant gratification, or they're not getting instantaneous commitments that say, we hear you, we're going to do this, this is the action plan, and then they follow through with it. For the most part, something happens, people sit on it, and it feels like the situation blows over, but they literally have people that collate all this information and kick it upstairs. So it's not correct to say that. You don't have to be happy about it. You can be pissed off about it. But the changes that they made by having this little web mission or some shit to be able to interact with the Missouri in a direct buy way. The change for the 17 to 20% credit modifier in the Missouri probably happened a lot faster because of feedback, which is impartially because Mouse was on top of it. But it's a thing that they can do, and they did, because they had the means to be able to just change the number in the game, and that doesn't fuck with anything. And then there was something else that was altered, but I can't think of it right now. So the long and the short of it is, the idea that feedback just goes into a void and doesn't matter is not correct. But you have to understand that it's an 8 months down the road if they want to change something kind of situation, except for specific things that they've added into the game that they have levers for. Although I do believe this gets addressed later in the thing. You thought that I said since the CC Discord was a ghost town. Well, it was. And they kind of addressed this a little earlier, and they might actually end up addressing it again. I don't remember all of the stuff that goes on. But when you have... There were some CCs that were assholes. I'm just going to be blunt with it. There were some CCs that were pricks. And I don't know how long it took them to become pricks, but they became pricks. And when you're a prick to customer service sits behind the desk and they smile and they nod and they tell you, well, thank you very much for your thank you very much for letting us know, because that's literally what you pay customer service to do. But there was a point back here, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 5 minutes ago, because God knows I talk a lot, where they made the point, there's a difference between being a customer and having an interaction with a customer interaction portal, whatever, and being a person that's talking to a team member, talking to a dev, talking to somebody that they're not a customer service person. And if you're going to get up in their face and you're going to say, like, you're fucking with us, or you're ignoring us, or you're bad faith, you're this, you're that, whatever, you're treating a person without respect. And it's not to expect that person should be disrespectful back to you. That's not okay. But Wargaming, for the most part, rather than get into a heated conversation, they just left. They avoided the conversation. They didn't sit there and have heated arguments to rip into people and have this nasty back and forth. They just basically, really angry people ran off the people that could have listened to them. That's what happened. But the result of the Exodus, a lot of the passionate, really fucking pissed off people did leave because they were really angry. They were really upset. And as a result of that, the CC Discord has calmed down a lot. I mean, literally, there was a Wargaming employee that's like, it's been quiet, and I'm waiting. Like, I'm going to look away for 20 minutes, and then it's going to light on fire again, because it's weird. It's calm. And we've had more people talking, more Wargaming people talking on the CC Discord after the Exodus, partially because the Exodus is like a holy shit, the world exploded thing, but also because it's not people screaming at each other. Or rather, it's not just people screaming at wargaming. It's people talking. Now, there are some passionate people that are very upset and they want to see change. They're still on the CC Discord. They're still fighting for change, but they're doing it respectfully. So wargaming has come back to be able to have those discussions, and that's a good thing. As far as feedback in general, like feedback on forums, feedback, whatever, they do hear it. Again, secondaries. That's not just from CC saying we want secondaries to be better. That's from the community on whole, probably across the whole planet, saying, man, we wish secondaries were better, and they did it. So to say, they're not listening to feedback, they do, but it takes a long time to implement. In terms of saying they're not listening to CC feedback, CCs had lit the CC Discord on fire and tried to burn it down effectively, and it just didn't do anything. So when they left, okay, they left, I get that, but that also left room. So instead of a bunch of people yelling in like a gymnasium and all you can hear is a bunch of people yelling, it started to get quiet and people could talk, which is great. I mean, you can look at this in terms of some conspiracy shit. Oh, the passionate CCs left and the devs returned. Again, if you're going to walk up to somebody and you're going to chew them out and you're going to be just loud and angry and everything to them, you don't have the right to expect a person to want to stay and get bitched at. Now, if you go to a company, a person working at a job, they may have a responsibility to stay there and stand there and get bitched at. But the CC Discord isn't filled with representatives like that. The CC Discord is filled with people. Any word on new maps? The map team, I think, has been building submarine underwater stuff for like the last 2 years, and I think they still have bugs and kinks to work out. So that question was asked in here, and they said no. I have no word on new maps, so no. But anyway, I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah, and
I'm getting grey.
Yeah, I see a question from Daz, like feedback being acted upon was never a realistic thing. Why ask for feedback in the first place if literally it won't be acted upon? Because it's not that black and white. Look, when we have like a topic like, let's take for example commander skills. We of course ask for feedback, but we do have a vision for like, and we have a reason why we change certain systems, why we introduce certain skills. And it's crucial for us to know what you think about this. That's also true for CCs. And sometimes we'll make changes very quickly, maybe already internally, because we can kind of anticipate how certain things are going to be reacted to. Or maybe we want to see how it actually plays out on the live server, because feedback can very oftentimes be very negative initially, because changes are not always perceived to be like, oh, this is going to be a good change, but at the end it might actually play out as something positive. Or we want to do a bigger change to a system to allow us to make more changes in the future or to add more things, and the initial change might not look that great. But it's not like the feedback isn't acted upon. If you take a look at commander skills, you will see that we removed that eye. We changed, for example, secondary skill with this update, but there is a delay. It takes time to take a look at the feedback, then compare it as well with the reality of the game and how people play the game and how it affects their gameplay, what kind of things they're choosing. And sometimes, yes, absolutely, CCs were right with certain things they said about the game, but other things, they were not. It's not, and it's not this black and white that we say, oh, everything was wrong what CCs say, or everything is right what CCs say, and now we have to change everything. But we can definitely get better in this area. But if you come to these streams, you know how we address these things and how we talk about them. And when we talk about feedback, we try to give you an idea of how the company works with feedback. And unfortunately, sometimes I do understand that it looks like, oh, there was so much feedback about this topic and nothing happened. But in software development, it takes sometimes a longer period of time to introduce the changes based on feedback or data, like with the commander skills.
And I have to say that among games, our development cycle is actually quite long, because we have a lot of, as a live game, we have a constant cycle of content. And while, to illustrate this, right now we are in update 0.10.7. 0.10.8 is being public tested, 0.10.9 is being early tested, and like 0.10.11, 12, and 0.11 are probably already being worked on in some parts. So it takes time when we get feedback and when we have something we want to change. It takes time for the game design to get done, then it gets tired. It needs to get an allocated spot in the roadmap, needs to start getting developed. So it really can take a bit of time. This is, I think, a weakness that we have. That's true. Maybe that's something that we can improve in future. One of the reasons why we didn't come out and say, we're very sorry and we're going to do this, this, and this is because I think at the moment, if we told you that we're going to make a certain change in the game, I don't know if you would stand there and say like, oh yes, Wargaming said this, I believe them, this is all great, we'll forget about this. So instead what we're doing is we're going to focus on making some changes and show some results rather than talk about it at great length.
Yeah, Mr. Fun is asking.
I'm actually going to echo that. That's something that they've also said on the Discord. That basically at this point, for instance, with Little White Mouse, she had an interaction with the dev. Personally, I've looked at it, I've read it, I was there when it happened. I believe it literally was a miscommunication. I've tried to talk about the Missouri credit modifier thing, which literally I think it actually was a miscommunication, but at that point there was so much anger that there was no way that it was going to result in a happy interaction, and it didn't. But at the end of that, or the end of the interaction, the dev that she was talking to said, I apologize, I'll try to be better. I'll try to be better next time. The stuff that I guess always gets said, and all that did was make it worse, because it's been said so many times. This is like, this happened. I'm sorry. We'll be better. We'll try to make it hard. That people don't want to hear that shit anymore. So it's like when you go onto the North American forums and they're like, "What? You didn't give an apology that covered this and this and this and this." People don't want an apology. They just want the shit to work. They want the shit to be fixed. So I don't know what happened there. They just want the shit to be fixed. So in that case, honestly, is it even worth making the apology until you have the fix? Because if you just give the apology, it sounds hollow, especially if the fix is going to take a month or 3 months or 4 months. So they do apologize for stuff in this, which frankly is one of the reasons why people need to see it, because they want to hear that Wargaming is aware of, like, yeah, in this situation we fucked up. They want people to say, yeah, in this situation we fucked up. And they did. I think most of that's probably back here, but I believe it might happen a time or two further down the road. But what they've decided to do, instead of giving you kind of a blanket thing, right now, if I understand correctly, they're probably sitting, figuring what the roadmap is. What are the problems? What can we do? What can we implement in 2 months? What can we implement in 4 months? What can we implement in 6 months? But all that shit has to be figured out, because this is a multi-million-dollar company, so they don't get to just change in a day. By all indications of what they're saying here, they're literally trying to figure shit out so that they can change it and they can get the word out and get it to people as a change. So I realize, obviously, that most people, when they hear me say that, are probably like, bro, you're just a fucking shill. I obviously don't know this. I'm not in the back room. But I'm trying to read the room. I'm trying to feel out, the feel of the fact that people are actually talking in the Discord, and the feel of those conversations. And the feel of those conversations is they actually give a shit, because holy fuck, this was an earth-shattering event. If anybody on their side was just kind of like a little oblivious to the situation, they got woken up. So they're pretty aware of it now. Yeah, in terms of the roadmap, that is one of the requests of the CCs. There are 1 or 2 CCs that have advocated that CCs want to know the roadmap for the game. There was pushback on that because Wargaming has found if they ever promise something that's like a month and a half or 2 months in the future, and what they promise ends up being tweaked even slightly, there are people that will remember, no, you promised this. And it becomes a problem. So in response to that, they as a company have learned to shut the fuck up. because if you don't promise it, then you can't fail to deliver it, which is, I mean, it's correct in terms of a business practice, but it's not really informative. So CCs are like, hey, you have us under NDA here. You can give us information, you know, that's highly specific or whatever, and we can hold on to it. I think there have been enough leaks in the past that they're probably just leery of doing that. But that is one of the things that CCs are fighting for, is like, can you bring us more into the loop on what's going down? Because we have communities and we have people that need assurances, need an understanding that the ground underneath them isn't just going to rip apart in an earthquake, you know, a month or two down the road. But that's a situation that I think is still going to have to be figured out. They don't have a response to that in a day. Let's see.
If CCs are just as equal to normal players when it comes to suggestion ideas, why have CCs at all? It's not 100% that case, because you know the CC Discord allows the CC.
I respect your opinion, but I want to change your opinion on the Wargaming as the most greedy game developer. I don't work for him. I'm not here to change opinions. What I'm trying to do is get raw information out, because if nobody is going to give information that's saying CCs are actually talking with Wargaming, if nobody's giving information that on the back end of it, you know, behind the scenes, it looks actually like something good might happen, then all you have is, this is fucking terrible, nothing's going to happen, the world is terrible, everything's trash, etc. So I'm trying to give you at least an understanding that behind the scenes, I do see wheels and cogs moving. Does that mean that those wheels and cogs are actually going to move and produce results? The only way that happens, there's a lot of people that are fucking pissed right now, and they're waving their torches and shit. But the thing with the torch is, when you light it on fire, it burns out. It lasts a certain amount of time and then it burns out. And if that's what you use, if that's the thing, I'm pissed off right now, I'm waving my torch and it burns out, then in a week from now, for the most part, other news happens, shit moves on, people stop caring. If this is important to you, don't wave a fucking torch and try to burn down the world. Keep a small little candle that's going to last you a month or 2 or 3, and keep that little candle burning. If that means that once a day, every day on a forum, you post a message, X is still important, do this. And every day you post that message over and over and over, and people post in the message each day, whatever. Put a date on it if you want to, so that they just stack up. Do whatever you're going to do to keep applying pressure, but just running around being pissed off isn't going to result in it, because this shit literally, as I explained with feedback, takes 6 to 8 months. So stay involved, stay interested, stay angry if you want to be, but just make sure that you continue to give a shit and keep pushing, because otherwise, if you don't push, then there's no leverage. So anyway.
To have direct contact to developers. That's definitely going to be a better situation to be in, and something that, you know, I used to be a CC. Actually, it's something you dream of. You're able to talk to the people who design the game. You're able to talk to people who, you know, make decisions about the game. And when it comes to the CC program, this is something we try to highlight, and I know it can be sometimes frustrating if you're a content creator. The idea behind the CC program is to support the content creators that are creating content about World of Warships. That's the core essence of the CC program. This is why we work.
Okay, I'm just going to say this real quick. Don't buy Missouri. Obviously, you're not a fan of the situation. I do have one rule on Twitch. Don't be a dick. Failing that, because sometimes people are dicks, don't try to be a dick. And I'm not really interested in having people just sitting here bad-mouthing shit. Part of the whole conversation, or part of the whole stuff that I do, is to try to get out information. And part of the things that I preach in the CC Discord and in life is come at a situation from a place of respect. You can dislike this, but please don't spend the next hour and a half just sitting there saying negative shit about this, that, and everything, because it's not going to do anything. So, just for me, because I'm going to be reading this for the next hour and a half, there's a certain amount of negative that I can handle before I just get really angry and upset and don't want to deal with the shit anymore. So for me, be annoyed, be angry about stuff, but don't just keep putting snide shit in the chat, because it's gonna piss me off. So if you can, let's just keep it respectful. If there's stuff you don't like it. If there's stuff you do like it. If you want to interact, that's fine, but just don't be like snippy for the sake of being snippy.
With streamers, for example, with video creators, right? With, for example, blogs, or for example, like Little White Mouse, it's not only blog, it's also about all of the reviews, right? We try to support them. So we give them extra content, we give them giveaways, we try to help them grow themselves, and reach a bigger status within the community. And we have been doing this for a very long time. And as an added value in the program, they do get to have direct contact with us. So they can, for example, go and say like, hey guys, I have this question from my community. And they don't have to go through official channels in sense of like go to the forums and ask the question, tag stuff there, but they can go straight up to developers or to the dedicated channels that we have, and they can get that information. They can share that information with their players. We also, for example, invite them to early tests sometimes, right? When there's a closed test and they get to try certain features first. So I hope this explains a bit more like how the CC program works in general. It's not a system based on, hey, this is us taking content creators to change the game. That was not the core intention of the CC program. And I understand it would be really cool to have as much influence as possible on the game development. And I do think CCs have a certain influence, but decisions are not only going to be based on feedback from, for example, CCs.
Even if they shout very loudly sometimes.
Yes.
Operator
they
V says,
did.
wargaming taking action is better than making promises, but communication about what you're doing and why is also important. Absolutely. But you have to realize that from Friday to even Thursday is not like a time frame where we as a company can commit to doing X and Y and Z by whatnot. We're having discussions internally right now. We're mapping out what it is that we want to do. And once we have that plan nailed down, and once we know what we're going to be able to deliver on, then we're going to communicate on it, but not before.
Yeah. And Camo1962 says, so, Edward Warships, when a member of your staff demands respect, is that not being hostile?
This is not derogatory. This is a declarative statement. Don't buy Missouri. This is a person that's telling you, don't buy Missouri. If you want me to echo that, Missouri is beaten by Iowa, which is a Tier 9 tech tree on the U.S. Tech tree line. It's a better ship by accounts of people that are more aware of battleships than I am. I think she turns faster, she moves faster, her rudder moves faster, she's free, which is always nice, and I think she has better healing or something, was an argument earlier in chat. Long and the short of it, there are some people that are going to buy Missouri. If you want to buy it, but in general, you don't have to buy anything in this game at all. None of it. You don't have to. And if you don't buy Missouri, you are not missing out. You're not missing out on a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own the best damn ship in the game. You're losing out on the opportunity to buy a slightly nerfed Missouri that has, or sorry, a slightly nerfed Iowa that has a radar. So if you think to yourself, man, I really would love to spend $100, which is theoretically like 2 games on a PlayStation, to have a ship that's an Iowa that's not as good with a radar, well, then you do you. But as far as him expressing his stuff, expressing yourself is fine. But throwing out constant amounts of just negative shit, it's a problem to me, which is why I asked him not to do it.
First of all, it depends on the situation. But I do think it's absolutely okay. That's just my personal opinion. If we're having a discussion here like this, that I can ask you to be respectful, right? Because I would expect you to treat me in the way I treat you. Like, I want to have a discussion with you. If somebody insults me, I will probably not answer their questions anymore, because that is not a basis to have a conversation with, right?
It is not.
It's like Conway and me, we might sometimes, make fun of each other, but we're good friends. We know the level of interaction we can have and what we can say. But if you're talking with a stranger, that's sometimes a different scenario. So if I would tell you, like, hey, Camo, if you would, for example, say, hey, Chrysanthus, you're like an absolute asshole and, you should go and, I don't know, fuck off. Then I would say, like, hey, dude, if you want to have a conversation with me in that context, I think it would be okay, right, to ask for respect. I don't know what you're referring to right now, or a specific situation, but I think in general, it will never hurt you to be respectful with another person, because then you won't encounter that hostility and people are going to talk to you in an open way.
You also have to remember, right, there's a difference between us asking you to respect us and us asking you to respect the company. right? Like, there's no need for you to respect the company, but there is a need for you to respect the individuals working for the company. I think that's an important distinction to make, right? Like, you can, if you want to shit on wargaming, look, I'm not super happy about it, but it doesn't like offend me because I'm not wargaming. If you shit on me for something that I have no direct control on, that's gonna make me unhappy, and I'm gonna voice that appropriately.
Now, I don't think I've ever seen CCs jump at a certain person. For the most part, if people were angry, it was like the stuff that you'd see on forums. Lol, wargaming. Oh, wargaming fucks up again. Stuff like that. But there was an atmosphere of just constant, awful. And this isn't just like the last week leading up to the Exodus. This is like the last 7 months. It's just sometimes it was more awful than other times where it was more quiet because there just wasn't much going on. But like the Discord before the Exodus was just, it was a rough ass place for somebody that works for wargaming because like you're never going to hear positive anything. So I'm restating this because they're just talking about the concept of talking to people with respect. That's going to matter in terms of this Twitch thing that they just did. It's going to matter in terms of interacting with people in life, in work, in reality, in relationships, in everything. And it absolutely matters in terms of the CC Discord, which is something that I believe has been reestablished. Tempers have cooled. Well, some people are still angry. Some people are still very angry. But a baseline of respect has been established, and people are talking. Which is why I say that's such a positive sign for, forward movement. Not to say that CCs are the greatest arbiters of feedback and that they're going to tweak in whatever the game, but the fact that wargaming has a working relationship with a CC means they think, hey, this person's kind of cool. There's something about this person that we see, as neat. You want to talk to people like that. CCs are cool. You might like some, you might dislike others, but CCs in general, their personalities, they're neat. So the fact, again, that we've gotten to a stage where people are talking, and they're talking from a place of respect, is a really positive sign. There's been an increasing monetization in forms of selling previously obtainable ships. I'm going to be honest, I don't know. Like, I don't have an answer to this, and I don't think they necessarily have an answer either. But just remember that imagine if McDonald's, if there was an outcry and McDonald's was told to stop charging money for fries. They might agree to that, but can you imagine how many months they would have to sit down and figure out how to reprice the menu to make sure that they don't go bankrupt because they're giving away fries for free if you buy this combo or that combo or whatever? Like, it's a fundamental change on how you make money. So if the monetization of this game has to be changed because people fucking hate it, that's not something that happens in a week. That's something that they literally have to go through and start doing all kinds of math to figure out before they can arrive at that conclusion. So understand that people, a lot of folks have paid a lot of attention to this, especially in this little community, this little scratch of the world. People that don't know World of Warships, they don't care. But do I expect change? I hope so. Do I know how big the change is or what it would entail? No. But anyway, I'm going to keep going.
Yes, and Luke Plepwalker says, so how much censorship today? Look, we're not censoring here, but if people outright insult or spam, we want to, because we want to read your comments, right? We're talking with you here for like 30 minutes already, and we want to talk with you. If there's only, insults, I will tell you that this is not going to help you. It's not going to help us, and it's going to make the life of everybody else in the chat who wants to ask an honest question very hard. So that hopefully explains this. And Rockhan says, when Americans speak up, they get pushed to the side and ignored or downright kicked. I call foul. I don't know where this would happen here. I mean, if you're from North America, did we ever, ban you here as a North American player? I don't think so.
Nope.
And I honestly don't give a shit where you're from at all. You're a human being, and I try to treat everybody the same way.
Yeah, so Nivet says respect is earned, not entitled. Well, thank you very much, Nivet. So I've been working for like World of Warships since the beginning of World of Warships, and I think I've been talking to you here from the beginning of World of Warships. I've always done my best to talk to you truthfully and nicely, and I think we've had lots of fun times together. So if I haven't managed to earn your respect by now, I don't know what else I could do that. And then, if you still don't respect us, then please feel free to take yourself somewhere else. Like watching this stream is entirely optional. Nobody's going to force you to do it, and we don't want to censor you. We just ask that you have a civil discourse with us. Captain Mini is asking, due to jingles no longer being a CC, will the jingles commander in game be removed? We have no plans to remove the jingles commander.
No, why? Like I don't see any reason why. I also completely understand. That for example, Jingles takes a different stance that we have on certain points and says, "Hey, I don't want to do this anymore." I completely respect that, and that doesn't mean that we'll suddenly remove him from the game. Like Jingles has been creating a lot of cool content for World of Warships. Luke and me had the pleasure to meet him in person and work with him for a long, long time, and I don't think our relationship, for example, personally, would be affected by this. And I hope we would in the future be able to work together again, maybe, but that's probably more up to Jingles than to us. And of course, we probably have to also make some changes to incorporate that. Pikachu level 23 says, Conway or Chrysanthus, could y'all come and play clan battles with us in A? It would be fun to have you guys.
Look, as long as you're going to be my CV after seeing you play.
So there are going to be some
happy to have you carry
general
me.
questions.
I do have an NA account, but I don't have a lot of high tier ships. But on tier 6, we might be able to
we might
be able to help. But I don't have like 19, 21 point commander. So if you message Conway and me, maybe we can find a day to play some clan battles together. Absolutely.
It just
So
kind
I'm
of
just signing into my game account here.
Yeah.
Still logged into Yabako, who's got like 300,000.
No, I also remember that the language is going to be Czech for the client.
I changed that already.
Okay, good.
I changed that already, but I also realized that Yabako has like 300,000 doubloons. We should relieve him of some of those. He clearly doesn't need them, and I think they would look much better on like my account.
So there are going to be questions that are just general. How do I get better at battleships and stuff like that? They do intersperse a bunch of other questions. I could just let it play, but I'll probably try to fast forward through them. So if you're like, whoa, what the hell was that? I mean, God knows I talk a lot. So rather than sitting here for 4 hours to go through 1 hour of content, I'll skip the stuff that's not relevant to the situation at hand.
Plutonium says, why should we trust your words? CCs don't get paid by wargaming. They can say what they want, you don't. Look, it's completely up to you whether you want to trust me or Conway or not. Most of you know us for several years by now. If you don't, then I can't influence this. I cannot put here a paper and say, trustworthy since, 2016. You will have to decide whether you think what we say makes sense, sounds reasonable to you, and comes across as sincere. Like, we don't want to sugarcoat that shit happened the last few days, weeks, months, and I hope we'll be able to address a lot of it. But I'm not going to sit here and make promises that I cannot keep.
Yes.
I want to work with you, not only for today and for tomorrow, but for the next few years. That was always my intention and my aspiration when I joined Wargaming, that we're not doing this for like 2 or 3 days, but we want to work with you for as long as possible. So I'm careful with what I'm going to say because I don't want to set up wrong expectations. And I'm trying to be as honest as possible in anything I say. So I hope you appreciate this. If you don't trust me, then unfortunately there's nothing I can do here to prove you wrong.
And then there's also little point in you coming here and talking to us on the stream, because if you're not going to accept what we say, then might as well not listen to it.
Yeah. Okay, I think, look, we'll keep talking about this, of course, while we're playing, but let's start jumping into some ships.
So Brew says one thing, and says, he's shouting, right? I have to take a step back.
I'm
sorry to say, I've never seen such toxic chat in my life. I have heard and read enough of the crap from those on this stream. How Conway and Chrysanthus put up with it, with you all, I will never know. I would have pulled all your plugs a long time ago. So, look, I thank you very much for the sentiment, Brew, but I think one thing that you need to realize is that we realize that the reason you're here and that you're angry at us or at the game or Wargaming or whoever is that you care about the game. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Otherwise, you'd just log off and play something else. So we understand that, and that's why we're here and we're talking to you, because we also care about this game, and not just because it provides our livelihood, but because we've been here from the beginning. We've been here with you from the beginning, and we'd like to stay here because it's fun.
Yes. Look,
Yeah, so I'm just going to reiterate something I said before. Poetic, yeah. Let's not be a dick. You may not like them. You may not like wargaming. You might be fucking pissed. Be respectful in the chat.
completely understand that you don't come here to, just rage and quit, but because you're passionate about the game. We fully understand that. And I hope you also appreciate that we're here. We're trying to, give you as many answers as possible. Big Guy, big fan, by the way, says, Wargaming on public test. To get community tokens, do you have to do both rounds to get 100 tokens? Or do you get 200 tokens if you do both rounds? So the way it works on the public test is you log on to the public test and you will have
I'm going to fast forward through this one.
You can also read up on the article. I can bring it up quickly and take a look at the missions if they're written in a confusing way. But usually the first it's per, like some missions.
So I'll just
count per round,
tune that
some
down a
count
little
per
bit.
round. So it depends a bit, but it should be actually written. So if you quickly go
So the question about community tokens, basically if there's a check mark on the first and a check mark on the second, then theoretically that's 2 times you could earn the community tokens. The reason they came up with community tokens is because you can get what you want. You get flags, you can get ships, you can do whatever you're gonna do. So that's kind of how they figured that all out.
If it's misleading, if you can only do it once, then we'll change this graphic for the future to make sure that it's not misleading.
So I know you want to play, but I think we need to answer 3 more questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought we'd just get started by picking ships.
Aurin is asking, Mr. Comic Santos, what is your personal opinion on loot boxes? So Aurin, this is the one thing that I can't or won't do here, like in this public forum as a company representative. Giving you my personal opinion is not going to really add anything to the conversation because my personal opinion in this conversation is pretty irrelevant. If you come to Prague, we can grab a beer and you can have my personal opinion of a beer, but not on the live stream.
By the way, Baller is in chat and he says, thank you for coming to the podcast with Boxy and I last weekend. Did you tell Mr. Conway that you are the smart, funny, and handsome one? He listened to the podcast, so I
listened to the podcast, Baller,
and I said I'm the one with the beard.
And I will find you or your account and your premium ship.
And Jeppo99, thank you very much. I appreciate, of course, and especially in times like these, also positive feedback about what we do. I thank you.
Yeah, there's also people like PJ Matthews who says, I come here for the hair jokes. Understandable. There are lots of those. Rage PC Gaming says, can you respect the feedback that we don't want gambling mechanics? We can absolutely respect that feedback, and I can promise you that we will have discussions about it internally. I cannot promise you that we're going to get rid of them. It's the simple, harsh truth of the fact that I cannot. But we are definitely going to have long conversation about this.
In general.
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate. If they're going to change the way that this game is monetized, it is a multi-million-dollar game. They're going to have to sit down with accountants and run numbers and run statistics and probability chances and all sorts of bullshit to figure out if they're going to be able to pull loot boxes out or random bundles, or if they're going to lessen them, if they're going to have an alternate version of how to get stuff. However the fuck all that works out, it's going to take time. This is not something that can happen in a day or a week or fuck even a month. Like, how long do you have to talk to an accounting department before you figure out how to completely set up not just a national, but a worldwide monetization policy and how you're going to move forward with funding shit? Like, when you recognize the gravity of what this change could mean and how massively that might have to be, how massive that change might have to be to put them on a course where, frankly, players are okay with it because they might have jumped off that course a year or 2 years ago to find their way back onto it and make sure that the numbers are correct. It's going to take time. So I realize, there are people that are super upset. They do give a shit. Does that mean that it's all going to go away? They have to figure out what they're going to do. But at least they're looking into it, which is a fuck of a lot better than not looking into it.
Guys, while we sit here, right, Conway, me, and we talk about all of these things, we try to provide you with the perspective of the company.
Correct. When governments begin regulating loot boxes, they already have. And I'm going to actually take a moment. I'm going to take a moment and describe something because there is literally a difference here. And this is actually important. Because Jingles recently called for people to talk to regulatory boards of the ESRB and PEGI. I'm going to be honest, those regulatory boards probably don't mean shit. And the reason for that is because when Doom came out, where there was some dude with a gun running around killing demons, or Wolf 3D, Wolfenstein, back in the 90s, there were moms and dads that were freaked out that it was going to turn their kids into satanic murderers running around and shooting stuff. So Please use the black background on paint. I don't know what the black background is, but there's a black background. So the reason why I'm saying this is that if you, the rating on that is if you walk into a store and you want to buy, your kid wants to buy Grand Theft Auto, well, a parent can look at Grand Theft Auto and go, oh, it's M for mature. No, sorry, kid, you're not going to get this. This is too old for you. But when there's something online, it's a different situation. You're not in a storefront. You don't have any age gating there. It's whether you download the shit and play it or not. So it's a big difference. Plus, games are available online now anyway. And I'm just gonna have to say this for all the people that are parroting this bullshit about, well, Peggy 7 means that 7-year-olds can gamble. Gamble with what? Bottle caps? Fucking trading cards? I mean, how many people think that a 7-year-old is sneaking into their mom's wallet so they can go get their cocaine addiction filled by buying as many loot boxes as possible so they can see if they get a bunch of special flags this time? Like, come on. Like, be honest with this. How many times do you see World of Warship like put on Cartoon Network between like children's cartoons? Never. You see it on YouTube. The target audience for World of Warships is like 30, 40, 50-year-old males that have a job and too much money on their hands so that they might end up buying some shit. That's where their advertising money goes. They don't spend, they don't try to put World of Warships on fucking like Saturday morning Christmas cereal. So anyway, but as far as getting the word out, loot boxes are different than random bundles. And I don't know, maybe I can't write this out. The long and the short of it is a loot box is something that you're going to buy and you have no idea what you're going to get. There's a percentage chance of a thing that you get, but you don't know. And then you open the box and you get whatever's there, but you've already spent your money. So if you think of it like a slot machine, you put your money in, you pull the handle, and you get a result. That's what you get. A random bundle is fundamentally different, and I think a random bundle is designed to get around the legality of loot boxes. It's probably like the next innovation as far as how to keep up the random stuff to be able to pull in extra cash, but avoid regulatory bodies. Which is why it's really important to understand the difference between a loot box and a random bundle, because if you're going to start contacting politicians, if you're going to start blowing up newspapers and whatever, if you're going to try to like make something out of this, you have to know what you're aiming for. A random bundle is basically a slot machine that's telling you what it's going to give you before you put in the coin. And then you pull the handle to see what the next result is, which is fundamentally different than a loot box. The other fundamental difference is that a random bundle has a set number of chances. So if there's a thing that you want and there are 50 chances, then you literally can't go more than 50 times. Now, it could be $1 million a chance to get a children's toy, which would be absolutely fucking stupid, but that's what it is. It's fundamentally coded in a different way. So if you're gonna go to some kind of like Peggy board or ESRB or something and try to explain it, you have to understand what you're explaining. But I just, for me personally, when people are talking about this, loot box that, understand that there are two different terms. When somebody buys like, German ship containers, that's a loot box. That's something where it's like a slot machine. You put your coin in, you don't know what the result is, meh, you get the result. Versus a random bundle where they're putting out something and there's 72 chances to get, a Soviet CV or some shit, which is like 72,000 doubloons to get a tier 8 ship you could get for free. Obviously that math is stupid, but you have to understand the differences when you talk about it. Anyway, I'm going to do the thing again.
Right? That you have the best possible information from our side. And on the other hand, of course, Conway and me will always take all of the feedback that we get here, from chat, from interactions, and we will forward it internally. This is not like going into a void. And there are discussions about all of these topics, but they're very big topics. They're very complicated topics, and so we don't have an easy answer for this. And change also takes time. So we will see what will happen with this.
Yes, Vasil, I saw your invitation, but unfortunately we are already full. Unfortunately. There was a question there, Jethro. Mr. Conway Chrysandus, can you please explain why the PTS rewards were changed from Dragon Signals to community tokens? It was because we wanted to give you something, like honestly, it's not because we didn't want to give you Dragon Signals, it's just we thought like community tokens would be cooler because you can use those community tokens to choose what you want to have as a reward. And I believe we will be adding signal flags to the naval community flag tab in the future. So if you're in near future, so if you just bank those tokens, you can convert them all into signal flags if you so wish.
Yes, I can maybe give some context. You know, sometimes when, for example, you can blame for community tokens, you can blame Conway and me. This was actually our project, and I'm very happy that it made it to the game because it gives you a lot more choice for all of the community activities that we're running. Be it Twitch drops, be it, for example, PT, be it, tournaments, recruiting station, all of these different aspects. I think more choice is always better because, you get to decide what you want to get for it. Now, the PT decision was actually something that we added very late on. It's something that I also have to admit I didn't have on my radar, especially with also the achievement change happening, that it would remove the reward in terms of signal flags suddenly from you. So there was no bad intention behind it. And we're already working on giving you signal flags bundles in the naval tab in the future, in the naval community tab. So I hope this will help with this problem. Okay, we're going to play on tier 8, Mr. Conway. Beatbird says, I feel that the dispersion RNG is especially bad on French PBs. Maybe you can give me some pointers to hit better. Okay, dispersion and RNG will always be part of playing a battleship, right? The battleships that have better dispersion.
I don't care about battleship, whatever.
The best piece of advice I can give you is if you're not super comfortable with aiming, one of the best guys I've seen on this, for example, is from Potato Quality. You can check out his video on YouTube about how to aim and what to take into consideration when it comes to aiming. And then my personal recommendation is, depending on how you play, I cannot judge this here from distance, how close you are, for example, to enemies. But the closer you are, which means you don't have to YOLO, but if you usually play maybe let's say on 18, 19 kilometers, if you move closer to like 13, 14 kilometers, you will have a better dispersion simply because you're closer, and the closer you are, the better your dispersion is going to be.
I think we should switch categories to just chatting for this evening.
Yes.
.url says, at World Warships, can you two write the statements instead of whoever does it on forums? Your speaking is already better than them spending 3 days writing 2 paragraphs. Look, .url, I have to disillusion you slightly. We were like, there's not one person who writes this thing in the secret little cave and then just posts it on the forum. Obviously, we discussed this before, but it's very hard to provide in-depth context and reasoning like that in a forum statement. It's impossible, and it's very, very difficult to do it in a way that doesn't get misunderstood, misrepresented, misquoted, which is one of the reasons why we do these regular live streams, so that we can be here and we can give you that context, we can explain, and we can hopefully clear some things up for you, right? It's not just, there's a reason why we're here every week, like clockwork, for years. Yes. Many years. All of the years.
Okay, let me just get my Lutins on here.
Hey, Dancy, so I will warn you, it wouldn't be an Ahskance stream if it wasn't taking 45 minutes of content and turning it into a 4-hour talkathon. So please understand that this was a very important part of their Q&A, and you may have missed it. So if you want to hop over to twitch.tv/Ahskance/videos and just kind of watch from the beginning, you'd probably get a lot of context that you might have missed. I will eventually clip this, kick it up to YouTube so people can downvote it and be angry or whatever. But I mean, I think it's information worth getting out. And rather than like record this and I don't know, edit it or something, which I just don't do, I just decided, fuck it, do it live. So that's what we did. I went live. We're going through it. We're talking about it, etc.
By the way, don't forget, you can actually start playing submarines in ranked. I would definitely encourage you to at least give it a shot. To get your submarines, of course, you have to go into the armory and try your luck with the random bundles so that you can get them there for free, and you either get coal or the rentals. And the idea behind this is that matchmaking would be fucked, because if everybody has submarines, everybody will just play submarines, and then the matchmaking is going to go full haywire. So please go check it out and provide some feedback. So we can improve submarines for the future.
Duvid is asking, can you please explain to us where you see the game heading to? What is the plan for gaming in the near or not so near future, except to maximize the profit at any cost? So maximizing profit at any cost is not and should not be our goal. I think this is one of the areas that we need to improve on strongly. But we definitely don't see this as a short-term game. This is not something where we're going like, oh, yeah, quickly, like let's like extract all of the money of the player base, burn it down, and make a world of zeppelins or trains.
Craft Zeppelin?
This game, right, I think has the potential and has the capability and hopefully will be around for many more years. You can see our sister or brother game, World of Tanks, I think their 11th, 12th anniversary. And I think if you keep content fresh, if you change some things up, if you add new ships, and if you kind of keep the game fun, then people are going to keep playing it. That's the idea.
Then I see here a comment from Baron Fisher who says, "So it was a whole team of people who got Little White Mouse's name wrong." This is something. So
Okay, can I? No, I'm angry about this one, right? I have to say, right, like with all due respect, Little White Mouse, right, she picked that out of context and made it look as though we didn't think about, like, you know, like we just got her name wrong, and this is completely incorrect because that is a Discord tag. The Discord tag that she has and had the entire time she was interacting with the people who wrote said statement and on our contributor Discord, right? So if you are not consistent,
this is just the name we used in our communication.
You have to be consistent in your naming across all platforms if you want people to be consistent in addressing you on all platforms.
There's no, like, for these kind of things, there's no bad intention. There's not like, oh, we didn't even know how to spell her name. We know how to spell her name. We've interacted with her very, very often. And this is just the name we used. And, you know, Shonai, for example, immediately offered to, like, hey, we can change it to your official forum name if this is what you want. There's no, like, I completely understand that we fucked some things up. Sometimes communication is definitely not our strength. But please, you know, try to sometimes keep it in context and not...
Here you go, stats blog. This one's just for you.
Yes. And Captain Minia was asking, are there any coming statements that will address the complaints regarding CCs, volunteer programs, monetization, and loot boxes? Look, I cannot give you a roadmap of statements. What I can tell you is that we, of course, take this very seriously, and I mean it. Like, we have a lot of discussions going on, but I cannot make any promises what's going to come out of them and what will change. I do think there will be change coming. How that affects, for example, CC program, volunteers, work with feedback, monetization, loot boxes, all of these different topics. I cannot tell you. I would love to sit here and then I would actually come on the stream and just say, like, guys, this is the list of things we're going to do, because why would I hold it back?
Promote Chrysanthus.
But that's, you know, like, I can't. As soon as I have anything here, I know, and that is true for the entire company, once we made a decision and we're ready to share it, we will share it with you, of course, as we always do. So, you know, I hope at some point, but at least right now I cannot give you any timeline or, you know, like any estimation when that would happen.
Yeah. Sang Luna says, I wrote bug reports on the forums about some Dutch ships being physically historically impossible, yet nothing gets fixed. Is the promised historical accuracy a ruse? So Sang Luna, this is a good example of where feedback is maybe, or the expectation for feedback is maybe incorrect. We generally don't ask for feedback on like the historical background of ships because we do our research before. I know that not all the ships that come into the game are presented in the way that you might want it because it's the most historically accurate or the most realistic. There are considerations made for gameplay, of course, and there are also considerations made for things, you know, like especially when we're talking about something like the Dutch line, where a majority of the ships were only projected and never built, where we kind of have to make decisions on what we think was realistic, what fits kind of with the theme of the line and the theme of the overall concept of gameplay. But that doesn't mean we are promising to make all ships as historically correct as possible. Where the ships existed and were built, we try and we do our best. And I think while, yes, I'm sure there are many things that as a historical enthusiast or like an expert on naval history, you can nitpick out in game, please, like, can you tell me with a serious face that we don't have like amazing models and amazing details and great historical representations of actual warships in the game? Because I don't think you can, because I think we have the largest collection of like digital ship models anywhere, because we spend a long time making them. But the longer we go on with our game, the more we kind of exhaust the fully historical ships that were built and have to go more into the blueprint phase. Or we, in some cases, like where we have like a great concept for a line from tier 1 to tier 9, and then we don't have a tier 10 ship, right? So we can't release a line without a tier 10. It wouldn't be a proper line. So in that case, we go and we theorize, like, what could they have done? Which is why we employ some actual historians and we employ some actual naval engineers. And yes, they're also people, they're not infallible, but I think overall we do a pretty good job. And that's my opinion from what I've heard in conversations with you guys over the many years, because let me just make this absolutely clear, I'm not an expert.
Yeah. And then to answer some other questions, while you please ready up in game, Darknet PL says, can you tell when the torpedo bug gets fixed? I hope it's going to be with 10.8, so with the next update. That's at least the best answer I can give you right now. And there was a question here about, sorry, where was it? So theoretically, nothing is stopping your company from selling premium ammo in World of Warships like you do in World of Tanks. Technically, no. Realistically speaking, if you compare World of Warships and World of Tanks, the games have gone two very separate ways in a lot of different aspects of the games, right? And they're not the same game. They're also not developed by the same developers. Yes, we are wargaming, but they're developed by two completely different teams, and we're trying to make the games fit our audience. Now, if you take a look at, for example, premium ammunition, I think it was actually changed in World of Tanks. At least there was a plan. I haven't really followed in the last, 1.5 years too much what happened with World of Tanks, to be frank. But if you take a look at World of Warships and what we changed, and I know that there are many things that a lot of you here in chat would love to see solved differently. But if you take a look at World of Warships and how the economy is built, the economy is very nice in World of Warships. We actually removed the repair cost for ships. Back in the day, we used to have to pay for, damage received. So you would actually have to pay attention to how aggressive you are because you're going to pay extra credits. And talking about something like consumables, we used to have free and premium consumables. We would have to pay 22.5k credits for each of the consumables if you wanted to get the premium version, and we actually changed this to a completely free model. So there's no difference whether you're going to pick like a premium or a free consumable. Everything got upgraded to the premium level and became free. Yeah. So I think that should show you that not everything is shit here. We do a lot of good changes. Not everything is always like super perfect, but I think it's not only bad.
I do want to just kind of to all the folks that donated, thank you very much. That's very generous of you. Thank you very much for the subs. I'm not going to be all like, woo, hype train, rawr, everybody jump in. This is a serious topic. I'm going to treat it as such. Thank you very much for your generosity. I do appreciate that. As far as what he just said about basically World of Tanks versus World of Warships, that if you've never played World of Tanks, you might not be aware of what gold ammo is. Gold ammo is, you might have a tank. I'll put it in World of Warships term. So a Des Moines can shoot a high explosive shell that pens 34 millimeters of armor. Gold ammo would be like, you could buy a golden gun for that game for basically real world cash or an excessive amount of credits, like 1 million credits, which is something that you're probably not going to get out of a Des Moines game. But if you did, all you'd be doing is just paying back the money you spent to start the game that way. And that's it. And this golden Des Moines gun pens 50 millimeters of armor, which is a completely different experience and completely different interaction set for a variety of different ships. Like, it's literally just, it's different. It's the same, like, that's what World of Tanks did. There was normal armor piercing, normal high explosive, and then there was this special magic armor piercing, which could do like a significant amount more. And I think they literally released a tank that was like the golden tank, where you had to spend gold to get the tank, and in order to do anything in the tank, you had to use gold ammo. So it's like the whole concept was you just throw away money. It sucked. So I didn't play much World of Tanks. It's really not my gig. But World of Warships is much more generally. It's a much better experience in general. Like if you're bottom tier, if you're tier 6 in a tier 8 game, your high explosive still hurts things. Your high explosive still sets fires. Your armor pen can still pen things. It just might not pen all the things. You're still relevant. But in World of Tanks, if you were tier 4 against a tier 6 or something, you may not be relevant unless you used gold stuff. And it's like, that's just awful. But I haven't played that game in like 3 years, so I don't have any kind of additional update. But one other thing, he mentioned that World of Warships used to have premium consumables. They ran the numbers on the back end, and like people that didn't use so again, thank you very much for this, folks. People that didn't use premium consumables suffered. Like they had a noticeably worse win rate because they're not repairing as many fires or damaged things. They're not using radar as aggressively as somebody else could. Like they were contributing less. And for the health of the game, they made the choice to just give everybody the premium version because the quality of life for the people that were like, well, I'll save money and I'll use this lesser version, it made the game worse. So they made the change for the health of the game, which, yes, means they pulled out some of the credit bleed from using them, but it was to improve the experience. Anyway.
Good evening, Virtual Senpai. Welcome to the stream, by the way. Virtual Senpai says, the bottom line is that we want transparency, we want to be listened to, and we want to be treated like customers, not just numbers. That's the plight of the CCs and the community at large.
This one, I think actually he's responding literally to a CC, which I think is this. So this is from Virtual Senpai, who is one of the CCs. And because he's responding to his CC, and I mean, that's partially the stuff I've covered or whatever, I'll just back that up so you can hear this in full because I keep talking. So we'll go back to auto scroll.
Not everything is always, like super perfect, but I think it's not only bad.
Good evening, Virtual Senpai. Welcome to the stream, by the way. Virtual Senpai says, the bottom line is that we want transparency, we want to be listened to, and we want to be treated like customers, not just numbers. That's the plight of the CCs and the community at large. We are overdue for change. I hope this last week has been eye-opening for St. Petersburg wargaming as a whole. If not, then I fear for the future. It's definitely been eye-opening, and I really hope that we will be able to deliver some meaningful changes based on this, so that some good can come out of it. But on a personal side, you kind of need to choose one of the other. You can either be treated as a customer or you can be a community contributor, because the two are very different relationships with us, and I think that's also kind of the expectation you have to realize that. If you want us to talk to you as a customer, we can absolutely do that. But the community contributor program is not a program of like us talking to customers. It's us talking to content creators and partners on a like more eye-to-eye level, and obviously because of that, also in a different tone with a kind of different background, different information. That's just my comment.
You know this
right?
from you know us personally. We've met each other, like summits and so on. So you should know us pretty well.
Yes, and the most important.
So maybe there's extension to this, but earlier in this, he made the point of operating from how talking, occurs. And it's like maybe he's about to make the reference, but I think he made it earlier. Like a customer that's going to go onto the forum and they're going to make a post that they're angry about something. They're going to make a post. If they contact customer service or support or whatever is there to interact with customers and try to always be a polite, friendly demeanor, even if they're politely telling you no. But a community contributor has one of the perks is that you are talking not to customer support. You are talking to one of the people that works in the company that is a dev or somebody that's, associated with that. So you're talking not to somebody that's paid to sit there and, just be ranted at. You're talking to a person. So there's going to be a different expectation of how that conversation's going to go. There's going to be an expectation that both sides are walking up. We're all respectful here. We're having a respectful conversation. And it's like, if you can't expect to railroad somebody or to talk, you can't talk over people. It's a back and forth. And I think what he literally just said there is like, if you want to have the customer experience, if you want to have the ability to just say, you need to do this, you have to do this, you have to respect my opinion, it has to be this, or like if you're going to be direct, and you're just expecting somebody to be happy about it, that's a customer experience. But if you're expecting, you know, an eye-to-eye experience, there's a different format of how you go about that. So I wanted to elucidate on this just because, like, this was a specific interaction of a CC talking with somebody and he responded. So I wanted to just, I felt that was important, so I figured I would talk about it.
Important question of today. Dazza 4x4. Toaster flag when? Is it next update? Ah, come on, it's not that secret.
Yes. No, I'm thinking.
I was just thinking. I think it's next one.
Yes, next one.
Yes. 0108, toaster flag.
Yeah,
The toaster
we'll make it
meme.
happen. So please ready up in the ship so we can at least also shoot some things while we talk about.
What do you
all of
mean?
these
Like
things.
this just chatting? I'm serious. I changed the category.
Oh no, please don't. Because it fucks
course
with
I
fucks,
didn't.
fucks with drops.
I'm not that stupid, even though I might sometimes feel that way. If there's anything hinky happening with the gameplay sound or things, please let us know. Because we reinstalled these PCs and there is a possibility. For instance, I don't have any audio from Chrysanthos Gaming.
So I don't know how long.
Ready up, what are we playing?
What are we playing? We're playing Tier 8, as you can see. We have.
My point stands. He was arguing the point that wargaming customers are just numbers to them. Conway compared customers and CCs get a little better treatment. That is not what Conway said. We can go back and we can listen to it again.
St. Petersburg Wargaming as a whole, if not.
And we're trying to make the games fit what we would love to see solved differently. But if you take a look at the repair cost for each of the consumers, not everything is always.
The bottom line is that we want transparency, we want to be listened to, and we want to be treated like customers, not just numbers. That's the plight of the CCs and the community at large. We are overdue for change. I hope this last week has been eye-opening for St. Petersburg Wargaming as a whole. If not, then I fear for the future. It's definitely been eye-opening, and I really hope that we will be able to deliver some meaningful changes based on this, so that some good can come out of it. But on a personal side, you kind of need to choose one of the other. You can either be treated as a customer or you can be a community contributor, because the two are very different relationships with us, and I think that's also kind of the expectation you have to realize that. If you want us to talk to you as a customer, we can absolutely do that. But the community contributor program is not a program of like us talking to customers. It's us talking to content creators and partners on a like more eye-to-eye level, and obviously because of that also in a different tone with a kind of different background, different information. That's just my.
I mean, that. If you think about customers in terms of this game, there are millions of customers. There are probably hundreds of thousands of active players, but there are millions of customers. Do you have a personal named basis with developers and people that work high up in the game? If you're one of the millions of customers that are out there, or the hundreds of thousands of people that are, active in the game, how many people know you on a name basis or a first name basis? Like, I think the guy in question, whatever, he had actually hung out with these people, like literally probably had drinks with them. I mean, that's a different relationship. That's a different connection. And this response is like, hey, if you want to be like, if you want a customer situation, if you want basically an impersonal but very friendly conversation, then that's one thing. But if you want, if you want to know somebody on a first name basis, there's a different level of discourse there. There's a different connection. And that's important because it's people talking. It's not, it's not a customer that's, expecting to be treated like a customer is always right kind of situation. I mean, it's a different, one is personal, one is not. So maybe that answered better the second time around, but yeah.
You notice
right?
from.
Okay, so
What are we playing? We're playing Tier 8, as you can see. We have been ready up, Camo and me, for like the last 20 minutes.
So I don't know when they're going to go back to another question, but there are questions in this
already got quite a lot of
in
notes.
this
I know
thing.
that you're in a sometimes tricky position when it comes to competitive. I haven't read anything in recent devlog posts and in upcoming ones that there's going to be something about Petra, but maybe after that.
Oh, by the way, this is our challenge. Chrysanthos will show you how to play Zao.
Yeah, Chrysanthos, I think, played Zal
Can I show test strips though?
like twice or something on
Can I
stream.
show test strips now?
Oh, this is valid.
Sometimes he's so disconnected from from us.
They did answer a question about work in progress
Look,
chips.
you had a
Maybe
go at
that's
me for
later.
Not readying up. Now I've readied up. Can you push the button?
Yes,
button?
yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
absolutely. So, homing shells on Gosu Phase 1. Nice try. That would be like miss out. I hope we'll never make it.
Good evening. Is this Jingles actually here? Jingles, are you here?
Yes, 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 he's here.
Yeah, Jingles was in the chat. He was basically just saying these dudes are great.
Raptor.
I've known them for a long time.
So, do you still have a CC program these days? So, yes, we do. And I don't want to sound disrespectful or anything, but we have a CC program with over 200 CCs. And yes, we lost, I think by now almost 30. And I will miss every single one of them. But our CC program is still very big, has a lot of CCs in there that are also active and that are working with us. They, of course, also share their opinion about what has happened in the recent past. But I want to make one thing clear: if you're unhappy with us, please direct this at us. Please don't direct this at CCs that are still part of the CC program, because they have their own, motivation to be in the CC program. They also just simply might disagree with certain aspects, what we are doing, what other people are doing. It's their choice. And I would ask you to treat them with, the respect they've earned over the last few years. And I'm sure that every single CC who left the program also made that statement that they ask you to please not, try to disrupt their chat, insult them, and so on. That's not cool.
Lichtprothese is asking, what about Eurogate? Lichtprothese, there is no Eurogate. Euro broke our contributor rules quite severely, and for that he was removed from the contributor program.
Yes.
I don't think it's a gate. It's just unfortunate, because I always thought Euro's content was quite hilarious. And had a good time with him as well until he lost his passport, but that kind of behavior is just not acceptable in any way.
Look, I hope he's able to change this, and I don't want to pass any judgment here. I did like working with Euro, and we had a lot of fun with him on the CC Summit. But if you're part of our CC program, you have to stick to the rules. That's true for everybody, be it a Flamu, be it a Euro, be it anybody else. It's we have to have rules, and they need to be adhered to.
So I just want to point out, they'd said, if you're angry at wargaming, be angry at wargaming. Don't be angry at CCs. Some left, some stayed. I am aware that there are CCs that have gotten death threats, which people get so passionate about stuff. There have been people that have gone on and fucked with Discords, going on causing shitstorms. There have been people that have gone on and fucked with Twitch streams. There have been people that have gone and just sent, just little fuck you grams, By the way, go fuck yourself, that kind of gig. Why was Flamu kicked? Flamu was kicked, I don't know Flamu, but from what everybody said, and this is public, this is not like Discord stuff, because they didn't talk about it on the Discord. Like, this is me interacting with community. Was because he used to do something called animal research, I think. Yeah, it's stat shaming. If he didn't like somebody, he would go into their profile and look at them and mock them. And you have to remember that if you're in front of an audience of 1,000 people or 4,000 people or whatever the fuck it is, what you do is things will result in other people mimicking your behavior. So if you're going to go around stat shaming people and fucking with people, you're going to have potentially 1,000 people that are going to do the same thing. They're going to be the people that if somebody is an asshole or somebody doesn't play well, they're going to look in their profile, send them a message in port and tell them to go fuck themselves because your win rate's this, you're trash, you're blah, blah, blah. Like all you're doing is adding awful. You're adding negative to the situation. There's nothing good about that. Now, if a streamer's going to do it, streamer's going to do it, but it's not a... One of the rules of the CC community, there's 2 rules. One, don't lie. And I think Flamu put out a tweet saying that one of the things that they had said to him, I think he tweeted this, was that Wargaming bought King of the Seas, and he said the only reason they bought King of the Seas is to shove CVs down our throat. Well, if you think of it in the context of don't lie, I don't know any... I don't believe CVs will ever be in King of the Seas. I don't believe it'll ever happen. I don't think they paid money to buy a property just to piss people off. So I don't think it will ever happen. Will there ever be a tournament with CVs in it? Possibly, but will it be King of the Seas? No, it'll be something completely different if it ever happens. And I think that if he, as a community contributor, put out basically a really controversial opinion, people are going to assume that he would be somebody that would know. And then that leads to all kind of people being pissed off. And I mean, if Wargaming had literally just spent money to acquire a property and he's going to throw off a tweet which is going to piss people off and devalue the property, I mean, it doesn't take a lot of logic to put the two and two together that they might be annoyed about that. And then obviously there's another rule, which is don't hurt your community. Don't be a douchebag. And the animal research thing is pretty douchebaggy. So I mean, it's kind of like the two of them, I would suppose, really is what came to a head. But I mean, I don't know. I've watched some Flamu videos. I remember actually laughing a lot when he was ripping them apart over the Puerto Rico, like, oh, this is like premium weapons grade asshole or something. Like, I remember actually laughing a lot about that. So anyway, we're gonna go back to the thing.
And
real quick, he spoke out against wargaming. There's actually no rules for a CC not to trash wargaming, which is why you've seen Flambast trash wargaming, Flamu trash wargaming, Jingles trash wargaming while they were CCs. You are absolutely completely allowed to do whatever the fuck you're going to do as a content creator. So if that means that you disagree with something, that's fine, but you have to disagree with it in good faith. You can't lie for clicks. And again, don't be a douchebag. Like, don't hurt your community. So if you're saying that you hate Wargaming's decision over X, well, that's completely fine. If you are telling the community to hate people that agree with Wargaming's decision, then you're just sowing discord and you're making people get... I mean, that's fucking with the community. That's not cool. I don't think most CCs do that. I think CCs are just very stringent in their opinion. And if they don't like something, they'll tell you that they don't fucking like it.
And Cashflow says, personally, I will not spend any money for gambling crates. A majority of events now rely upon gambling crates to complete them. I feel disconnected from the game and will no longer spend for the blues. That is absolutely your choice. And this is a free-to-play game, and you have full control over how you interact with it and how you, if you want to spend money and what you want to spend the money for. I would still like to give you a little caveat, because yes, we do have, for example, a lot of, random bundles in the game. That you can interact with, be it, for example, for early access. But early access is really just that. If you want to have these ships in-game, you can also just wait 1 or 2 updates and you can research them the old-fashioned way of just playing the game and unlocking them with XP and credits, for example. And yes, sometimes we also have, for example, special crates and so on. And it's your decision how much you want to interact with them. And that's always your right. And that you're the customer. You decide what you want to do with our product, and we will see that.
There was a comment here that I wanted to address as well.
Well, while he looks for that, because he looks and doesn't find it, you were surprised they didn't ban Euro sooner. I'm gonna be honest that I mean, there was so much going on in that 3 days. I mean, for those that don't know, I lost 8 pounds over 3 days because I was so caught up in all this stuff. I made videos to get the word out. There were forum posts telling me to go fuck myself in nicer ways than that, but basically that. And I don't know. I shouldn't have cared as much, but I couldn't sleep. I couldn't get it out of my head. I was talking about this shit for days. I don't know why I decided that this was as important as it was, that somebody had to step up and get the word out. But for whatever reason, I did. Nobody wants to jump in front of the bus, especially if the bus is coming from both directions. You're protecting wargaming, you're against CCs, or whatever. Either way, it's just one giant shitstorm. But there was something inside me that said, this is really important. So I did it. And I'm going to be honest, Wargaming had to deal with more than I had to deal with. So if they took a few days to ban Euro because of the stuff that he said that was revealed or something over Twitter, they were busy. But they did, because he broke the rules, which is what they just said.
Comment was, but the comment was something along the line.
Yeah, stress made me lose weight. I was very stressed. I took a sleeping pill, and all that resulted in was me sleeping for an hour, which is bizarre. So ultimately, 2 days ago, I took 2 sleeping pills on the assumption that that's probably okay. And I slept for 9 hours, which helped. At least I could think again, I guess. But last night, I think I slept for like 4. So I'm probably just going to have to take sleeping pills for a while to remember what the fuck sleep is. And then hopefully that'll regulate out. This is obviously still a stressful situation. But the good news is, as they can talk about it and tell people, context or give them, an understanding of what's going, I don't have to. Which means I don't have to give a shit about, getting the word out or whatever, because other people are. I don't know. So I don't intend to live on this. I don't want to revolve around content based on this. This is not my thing. I teach CV and anti-CV tactics, and for the most part, I just like to hang out with people. And I found that streaming is like it's my social kick. I stay home. I'm not married, so this is my way to interact with people and just be social and in a community. There are people that love me. There are people that fucking hate me. A lot of people have no idea who the fuck I am because I'm not that important. But anyway. Right. Drum stream win. I'd have to mic the drums, and I haven't really played in a long time. So anyway, I'm going to keep going.
Kinds of the CCs that could afford to leave left, and the only ones that are stayed are the ones that kind of need to stay for their chance to survive. And so, this is incorrect. And please don't go assuming
Thanks, Lego.
Individual contributors' opinions on their actions, right? If you're interested, go and ask them and chat to them in a nice way, and I'm sure they'll be happy to answer you. I mean, they are content creators.
And many of them also already made statements or prepared them, because of course a lot of people are asking about this. But this is something where I just have to say, you please respect the opinions of people. Just because you feel a certain way, and maybe very strongly, doesn't mean that everybody else has to agree.
Yeah, and just because somebody didn't leave the contributor program doesn't mean they're not having a dialogue with us in the background, criticizing the things that are, that everybody else is criticizing as well.
I'm going to echo this. I said at the start of the stream, there are passionate CCs, calm CCs, and ghosts. Calm CCs, they'll tell you fucked up. Some of those left. Fair amount of them stayed. They're calmer, in general. There are some passionate CCs. There are passionate CCs that, a lot of passionate CCs were very passionate. A lot of them left, but there are passionate CCs that stayed. And they're absolutely still fucking pissed off, and they are absolutely still stating, demands and concerns. But the Discord in general is more respectful. And because I'm just going to be blunt with it, because there's less passion, because there's less just, bah! There's less just yelling. It's so much easier for people to have a conversation, that the mood of the Discord has calmed down and the interaction has gone up. So don't think that people that are still there are excited about the current situation, or that they don't want change, because that's not true. There are some people that are extremely interested in change, but because the tone is more respectful across the board, it's more impactful. More is happening, which is nice.
But using their position in the contributor program to be able to.
Some of the CCs quit over Little White Mouse. Probably most of the CCs that quit because of Little White Mouse, as kind of like this was the tipping point. But there were several CCs that quit that had literally been talking about it. For instance, Jingles, I think, when Flamu was kicked. Or maybe it was Zoop. I think it was when Flamu was kicked, because a lot of people were talking about it back then. I mean, he was literally saying, I don't need to be a part of this anymore. He felt that, his feedback wasn't being listened to, because honestly, at the time, I don't know how much feedback was being listened to, because I think the people that gave feedback could probably just run off all the devs. So I mean, there are some people that had already talked in videos that were out saying like, I don't know why I would stay with this. I don't know why I would continue with this. But they're also, you know, Jingles is a fucking force of nature. You know, he has almost 800,000, 1 million people that listen to him. He can do what he can do. There are some CCs that stayed because yes, there are perks to the program that are important for them growing their content, but they're still upset. There are some CCs that are staying not because they care about the perks of the content, but because literally they're staying because they're upset, because they still want to be in the room to have those conversations and to make sure that their voice and other voices are heard, you know, in the backgrounds, quote unquote, at the negotiating table. For me, I don't really use giveaways and stuff to any significant extent. For me, the value of being in the program is, one, frankly, it's a bit of a status symbol. I realize that status symbol has been tarnished. But the other thing is, it is an ability to have a conversation with a dev or, you know, people that are in the game. And I value that. I think it's amazing. And I got to see as the conversation that happened pre-Exodus and post-Exodus resulted in a combat mission that gives you the chance to acquire Missouri for a set amount of money, as opposed to a random bundle. I realize, fuck random bundles. I realize, fuck time gating. But there was a thing that didn't exist, but it does exist now. And it happened because of this controversy, which means that the interactions that happen on that Discord matter. So, people that left, frankly, to the people that left, I'm glad they left because they weren't happy. And if you're going to stay in a situation where you're not happy, you're just going to live in misery. You know, to use a weird example, and God knows my examples are strange, I used to have a coworker that told me one day that he was getting a divorce. And I looked at him and I said, I realize right now is an emotional time for you, but I'm happy because that means that you're in a situation that you probably need to get out of so that you can be happier. So I know it's going to feel like a lot right now, but you're moving to a better situation and I'm hopeful for you. And I mean, I have Asperger's. My empathy level is probably terrible, but I think he appreciated that because at least it was, you know, it was eyes on getting to a place of being happier. And I've heard several CCs that have left that have been happier. So that's cool. Anyway, I'm going to continue.
Have that discourse with us and to be able to talk to us and, you know, like hopefully work on improving things going forward.
Yes.
So they mean they are playing the game, so their interaction is
Their
interaction is going to be different.
Better.
I'm just going to say you have to open a support ticket to buy the Missouri. No. I'm just going to clarify real quick. There are 3 ways to buy the Missouri. 1, the Missouri becomes available. It's a random bundle thing. You can buy the random bundles, and God knows how much money you're going to lose if you do. I don't think they've announced what the program is going to be, so I have no clue. Hopefully it's not mind-bendingly horrific, where it's like 150 random bundles for 1,000 doubloons each, or just something dumb. Hopefully at least it's something mildly sane. Option 2 is a combat mission shows up. That they were going to do it for some thematic fun or whatever, but they attached this Missouri thing to it as like a workaround, a way to make this thing happen basically last minute. And if you do this web-based mission thing going through historical stuff in World War II or something, it releases a button that can give you a mission to do every 2 days or something. So there are 7 buttons. So that's basically 2 weeks. So if somebody who wants the Missouri is able to sit on that impulse for 2 weeks, click the button, which is going to be online or hopefully in news articles every 2 days. I hope it gets refreshed so it's in front of people so that they can interact with it. If they click the button and they do the thing, it's supposedly they're easy. Once you finish that, there are 2 ways to acquire the Missouri post mission. 1 is you buy it from the premium shop for cash, direct sale. you buy it. It's like $90 or $80, $90, whatever the hell a tier 9 premium is. Or version B, people were like, well, why the fuck can't we use doubloons? How could we make that work? They looked at the code base for the armory. There's no code to be able to make the Missouri unlock once you finish this mission. They didn't ever have this idea at the outset. It wasn't something they planned for, and they're not gonna fuck with code on the live server, especially if it means that it's gonna interact with real world currency, because if doubloons disappear, that's when legal shit happens. So they ain't gonna do that. So instead, they have customer support. So if you want to pay with doubloons, you can do that, but you're going to have to contact customer support. So yes, it's an added hurdle, but it's really just a workaround so they don't break the code. Anyway, I'm going to go back again.
Did the know it does?
That's always the case. How's your secondary build going? Is it starting to...
Secondaries are
talk about?
taka, yes.
Okay.
Eventually, they're going to talk about something again.
Baltimore, is that really... Do you really think like setting this rule set?
Yeah, like I thought you were
not
punishing you for that.
Oh. Well, if RNGesus and my aim continues to be that bad, it might not be a bad idea, but you're still going to get punished for it. And guys, we'll get back to questions in a minute. Let me concentrate on not sinking.
Yes. Electric also says maybe they wouldn't have left if they were taken with respect. Look, I understand that not everything was perfect, but
I think he said maybe they wouldn't have left if they were treated with respect. I think that's what he said.
I don't necessarily agree with that, you know, we mistreated our CCs. I've always treated every CC with the utmost respect, even if we disagreed, because I think it's absolutely natural and normal to have different stances on different things, and that it's crucial in life to be able to talk to each other without jumping at each other's throat if you just disagree. I think the same thing is true for Mr. Conway, and I know that there's no bad intention from anybody working for our company towards any CC we ever had. So I do feel that, yes,
But apart from Painsaw.
well, we're just withholding his balfours. That's the way we mistreat him. No, but I do agree that, you know, there were
Wow.
there was miscommunication. We can definitely improve on that, but nobody here meant disrespect. I know everybody who's working on the CC program, who's interacting with the guys, and they are good people. They're good people with no bad intentions, and I'm very sad that all of this escalated to this point. Really.
Yeah, and somebody, by the way, I was just asking, look, I can't read your comments right now, I need to concentrate. But somebody was also asking about the Missouri income issue. This is something that we can talk about in a minute. Happy to address why things are the way they are. Look at that.
Fast forward. Sorry, I'm blocking it. I want to be able to...
How much are you two involved in the CC program? To give you some idea of like how a CC program is structured, at least right now,
The question, in case you didn't hear it, is how are you two involved in the CC program?
is that we do have our GPI team that
Global Player
runs the
Interaction.
Global Player Interaction team. They're responsible for basically running the Discord that we have together with our CCs. They're answering actually most of the questions because they're sitting right next to development, and they can, you know, give a lot of the in-depth answers that sometimes, for example, Con maybe wouldn't be able to give them. The involvement that, for example, Conway and me have with our CCs is we're more helping with regional aspects. Like if a CC has a problem, needs some help with his account, if he wants to run a giveaway, if he wants to run a special activity, they usually come to us. We'll do our very best to help. We also come to streams, for example, to answer questions. We invite them to offline events. If there's, for example, a global summit that would be realized by our team from St. Petersburg. And then what else do we have? Nothing that I can think of right now, but it's, you know, it's like a mix of responsibilities, and I think that, for example, Shonai and, you know, Vesari, they're doing a fantastic job of trying to provide like a really high level of, you know, like quality of service in terms of answering all of these questions, concerns where possible. What they're not able to do is, you know, make changes in the game. They provide our CCs with the answers and the take of us as a company, as a team, how we see these different issues. So please don't take it out on individuals. That's my stance in general when it comes to, you know.
So just to say, answering questions, part of the CC Discord, one of the channels is Dev Q&A. So if you have a question about a mechanic or if you have a question about a situation, or just a question about the game or something, I mean, you can ask questions to the devs. And Shonai and Vesuri, I think he mentioned, they're kind of the two people that sort of like look over the program. I think Shonai's probably the most talkative. I think he probably is better English. So I think he's just more vocal. Anyway, or either that, or maybe Vesuri is not as involved. Maybe he's more of like a secondary person. I don't know. Anyway, so when he's saying about answering questions, that's what they do. So there is literally a path for a CC to be able to ask something about, is this ship going to be available? Is this ship having an issue? Or is this mechanic whatever? Is just to be able to answer things. Feedback is a different channel where you can leave feedback. And much like, if you say something on a forum, you would probably be surprised if like the head of development showed up and answered your personal grievance, or to say like, I think this is a great idea. That would be bizarre. Feedback channel is not often populated by dev responses. Usually it's there. And Shonai has said that, he goes through the feedback channel, writes all the stuff down, collates it, puts it all together, ships it up to the dev team. And while there may not be an individual response to the specific things, it's all read. It's all tracked. But this all goes back to, and we've probably talked about it multiple times, so I'm not going to go back into it. Feedback is listened to, but it's slow to be iterated on, because often something that would have to be iterated, or they would choose to iterate, would end up taking like 6 to 8 months just by development cycle. Anyway, I'm going to continue.
Employees.
Apart from
And-
Pedro.
Is he an employee by now? Okay. Well, Painter, welcome to the team. So yeah, it's a complicated system, and I completely understand frustration that can build up over time. But the one thing I can say is that nobody here means like disrespect or has a bad intention. Sometimes there's unfortunately miscommunication, and I know that becomes a meme. But if you don't mean it in a negative way, but the other party understands that in that way, then there's of course an issue in how it was phrased, or it might have been taken the wrong way, and there's no better way to describe it. And we will do our very best to fix it, but it's not going to be something that will be done in like 2 days.
So Onibaba asks, what is the task of a CC? Tell players and customers learn and play the game, or be pseudo developers? So a CC is an interaction point for the game. And let me do this. There was a wonderful picture, and God, I wish I had it. But if you think of like a player's life with the game, there's going to be new player. So, change that. There's going to be a new player. New player's going to come in. Some of them will leave. This is called churn, because they're not interested in continuing. Some of them will learn the game and continue. This often turns into like passion. So people like the game. They start to talk socially about the game, which is going to end up sending new people to the game. And people's passion is going to go for a period of time, but eventually they're also going to leave the game. And as people continue, they may continue until eventually everybody's going to hit an end game where they've basically done whatever they've going to done, and they're pretty much just going to peter out and stop, in which case, end of life. And the player's going to go find a different game to play. This is a natural cycle. What is a CC? If you look at it in terms of wargaming's perspective, these passionate players are people that stream on Twitch. These passionate players are people that make videos. These passionate players are people that, have personality that people listen to and care about and whatever. And they can keep people, in this kind of interested stage to play longer. Because, again, free-to-play games are a business. So you only get to interact with people that are staying. So CCs are a way to continue interacting and keep people staying around. Now, there are some people that leave the game, but they keep following a community contributor because they like their content. Some people might not play World of Warships, but they listen to Jingles talk because they love Jingles, whatever. But that's from wargaming's perspective. Wargaming is supporting this, the passionate player that's helping people to identify and connect with the game so that they can play the game longer. if you're looking at it in a business sense, a community contributor, what they get from wargaming are a few perks. They get some doubloons. I think it's like 10,000 doubloons a patch. So, I mean, it's not big, but it's something. It's like $50. Woo! $50. They get access to test ships so that they can know about the ships. They can give an opinion. They have access to the Discord where they can talk to devs and ask questions. They have access to giveaways and stuff. So they have little perks and stuff. But all that does is just help the CC to make content. They can make content about new ships. They can make content and have giveaways to inspire people to show up. So this isn't like, CCs are not supposed to be pseudo devs. They're not supposed to be like, their feedback is king and of course we're going to implement it. They're just people that are part of a program where wargaming says, hey, you people are cool and we like that you're part of our community. We'll help you out a bit so that you can grow. And they go, hey, that's cool. I like getting help. So that's basically it. If you as a CC hate wargaming's decisions, you can trash them up, down, and sideways. You could obliterate them in every piece of content that you create, as long as you're being truthful about it. So this is not like, it's not a deferential relationship. It's not a shill relationship. It's just literally a thing that's there. So sorry, to answer this question, the help players and customers learn to play, it's this. It's player interaction. The more players are interacted with, the better. The better it is, because players will stick around longer and they'll feel more immersed in the community. Being pseudo devs, no. One other point, and this is just me personally. One other point that I want to make is that you would not walk up to an electrician and say like, shouldn't wire it that way. You wouldn't walk up to a plumber and say, you shouldn't plumb it that way. You wouldn't walk up to a doctor and like, you shouldn't take temperature like that. I mean, you could, but it would be awkward because these are specialists. These are people that is what they do. That's like telling an artist that they're doing their art wrong. And there are people that are obviously going to have a lot of opinions on different things. You might have an opinion on how a mechanic does their job or an opinion on how a doctor treats a patient. But unless you're another doctor or unless you're a mechanic, you have to understand that you're coming from a different knowledge base. And a community contributor or a player in general, like high-end players, for instance, often say, this is broken, you should fix this. I play the game a lot. I'm a specialist at the game. I know a lot about the game. This should be changed. That can be true. But a developer isn't designing only around a specific interaction of a specialist. A developer is designing a game that's going to have a certain target audience, a certain size of connection with the world, and that's what they're doing. So yes, your feedback or that specific instance might be very interesting to know, but there's a whole method. I mean, if you're an architect, how you build a building, there's so much foundational stuff and so much connectivity stuff that you can't just focus on, I disagree with that wall. Great. There's a lot of building here. You're seeing this one piece for the whole thing, and it's like, So when a dev, if a CC does try to, look at it like this, it can be tough. It can be tough and frustrating. It can be frustrating for the person that's frustrated, and it can be frustrating for somebody that's like, okay, I understand that, but again, architect, like, that's a wall, this is a house, the house is a big thing. Anyway. Yeah, fuck that wall. So Evan says, it's neither from our point of view, and Evan works for Wargaming. And please be respectful in the chat. I'm just going to throw that out there as a blanket statement. It's neither from our point of view. We created the CC program because we saw content creators playing our game and streaming it, but they were limited. We wanted to enable them to just show the whole extent of the game in the best way they want. Now, after many years, the program has agency over a significant audience, and we want to create a channel so they can inform their audience the best way possible. Player interaction. That's what it is. You find somebody that you think, hey, this is a cool, this is a person that's got really good player interaction potential. We want to help them. They help them. There you go. Literally stated. So, all right, so we're going to go back to the video.
Any chance we'll ever be able to use com tokens to convert ship XP? That's very unlikely.
Community token? Oh, okay.
You just have to realize that we introduced like a lot of different resources into the game, and a lot of the stuff that you can do is for free. For example, you can buy special ships with coal. You can buy it with steel. You can earn free XP. You can also convert, right? But if we touch monetization, we talk about this. Like I know that is like a big topic in general, right? But our game economy is very important because if we touch these things too much, and I think, for example, community tokens are fantastic because you get to pick, for example, you get to pick even like premium ship containers for free for interacting with our community programs. And if we overdo it, we will have to adjust, for example, prices. We would have to adjust in-game economy, make things more expensive, and so on. And this is why we're usually careful about these aspects. Paint says, as my first act as an employee of Wargaming, crediting myself at Belfast and sneaking a googly eye bindable perma camo into the game. That would be. I can see where this is coming from. You should definitely do it.
Okay.
I have nothing
Now that
against
you're working for us, welcome to the team.
I have nothing against a googly eye camo. In fact, I would appreciate a googly eye camo, but kind of needs a bit, like we can't just go and say like, hey, make it a googly eye camo. It needs to be a bit more thought about why and what we're going to do.
What
with
kind
it.
of eyes? Like how googly are they?
How
Where would they
googly
be?
are I don't even know if we have googly eye technology ready to the point to properly
Did we talk
justice.
to Google?
Huh? Googly eye. Okay, I see what you did there. You're getting on my level of joke.
Yes,
slowly.
yes. And Jethro Gray is asking, are there any plans to change the CC program, as in requirements, benefits, and so on? Nothing immediate. Like I hope you can understand that change like this, and that's my personal opinion, should never be rushed. There needs to be a clear discussion about what we want to achieve, what we're going to do to actually address the pain points. And it's a very complex topic because it's not like one topic escalated. There are various different levels and things that CCs, for example, would like to see changed, and different CCs have different opinions. There are, of course, overlapping points. But for now, there's nothing concrete. We have to have a lot of discussions internally, and then hopefully at some point we will be able to do improvements. I think we always strive to improve. I hope that can be understood.
All right, so now that he has died, I think he's a little more interactive with the chat, so we probably don't have to
It's just
fast forward very much. Well, once this game ends, is they're going to bring in Bogsy?
Okay. I mean, you can answer all of the questions, or at least ask me the questions, and then
No, I'm just
focus
looking.
more
I'm
on
just
shooting things.
I'm just taking the questions in.
Okay.
No audio from Chrysanthus game. We know this, but I also cannot fix it while Chrysanthus is gaming.
You can't?
Well, I need your mouse.
What is my problem?
You don't
My
have sound.
okay.
Still. I'll fix it for him in a minute.
Tech support.
Is Bogsy staying as a CC? I imagine so.
Why are the devs against the Little White Mouse camera for Yukon? I'm not sure. Oh, God. Okay, I'm dead.
This is a question that I know a lot of people have wanted answered, so I'm just kind of highlighting this, talking about the Yukon camo thing.
To be honest, I don't have the full context of that decision, but I think it was actually mostly about the timing, if I recall correctly. Yeah, that's me gone. Nicely done here. Focused a little bit too much on chat.
Official The Mighty Jingles statement. He says, I can happily confirm that my dealings with Conway and Chris have never been anything other than totally helpful and professional, even if Conway is about as German as Leonardo DiCaprio. Yes, I didn't even rage at Jingles when instead of coming to the event that we invited him in, he decided to have an extra beer at the gate with Rita and missed the plane. I try.
Yes, but the comment about like adding things to our roadmap. I hope you can, and it's up to you whether you believe me or not. But if you take us as a company, we do have plans of what kind of content is going to come into the game. And adding new content in there can be very difficult if the roadmap is already very, very packed with content that is agreed on, not only internally, maybe also externally with partners and so on. So adding new things in there is difficult. Now, I don't have the full context of the Little White Mouse camouflage with Yukon, so I can't give you a really good answer. But I can tell you that in general, it is very difficult to insert something very short term. So this is why usually if you talk about adding something, it will usually take a significant amount of time. Even, for example, something like a camouflage or a skin, these aspects. This is not something that is done within a week. It needs to go through the full development cycle. It needs to be tested, needs to be QA'd, it needs to be then released, and that takes a while. And that's at least like to provide at least some kind of context. For the rest, I would have to check internally what was the full reasoning of that.
Veni Vidi Vicini.
Okay, so he's going to start another question. So I just want to say, one of the things. So I obviously made a few videos over the weekend, and I put out forum interactions. And one of the people in the forum had said, like, the weird thing, this camo. For those that don't know, before I go any further, I'm not looking to address any little white mouse stuff. Not the goal here. Not touching it. There's for those that are curious about the entire experience, she's made statements on her own, but that was all handled in. She did a premium ship review, as she does, for the Yukon, which was a ship that she and Chobitsu basically were collaborators with and creating, etc. And the long story short is, it did not go well. And one of the things that she had wanted was for a camo to be implemented. This is the camo that the guy was that Chris Santos was talking about, and I was of the understanding when I read the back and forth and stuff in that thread that Chobitsu had designed the camo, and in my head, what that meant is that I believe Chobitsu is like a graphical person, graphical maker, graphical artist. I don't know. That they designed it, like they had an entire idea as for how it, what it looks like, what the concept is, what all the art is, what all the whatever is. But there's a big difference between having a design, kind of like a storyboard, and then making the movie. Like there's the actual production aspect of it. So in my head, I was thinking, no, okay, so everything's planned out. Again, like architect versus having a house, like having the plans, building the house. So I was thinking it was in the design state, but then I was told in the forum, and I'll be honest, I haven't tried to check up on this, but I was told and I was assured, no. When he said, or Chobitsu said that it was designed, meaning it was done, like pop it in the ship and go. And it's like, well, if that's the case, then yeah, that's pretty weird. If Chobitsu had previously worked for Wargaming and all of this shit was modeled and all of this shit was perfect and all of it was done, well then yeah, that's really weird. Why didn't you just upload the file into the game? Hell, you could even do it as like a mod in the mod station or something. What? But based on this answer, and he did say that he doesn't know, he wasn't part of the experience, but based on that answer, it's even whether it was done or not, they still have processes, and if you're going to work in a big company, every big company is going to have a process. There's a process to get from point A to point Z. You follow the process, it works. When you start jumping around and changing shit, or like you skip steps, that's when errors and fuck ups and weirdness happen. So if there was a process and this process was like 6, 8, 10 months or whatever the hell it is, then evidently that might have been an issue. So I don't know, but I would like to say earlier on in all this, I when talking about feedback in terms of secondaries, how long did secondaries feedback take to get addressed? 8 months, because it was implemented. These are the new secondaries. What do you think? There were 2 patch cycles of data collected, or roughly 2-3 months. And then there was coding, and coding seems to be started about 5 months out, 2, 3, maybe 4 patches into the future. So 2 months plus 4 or 5 months equals, 7, and January to August, there's a 7-month gap. So I don't know how long it is for camo implementation, but if it's also, 5 to 7 months, that's a significant amount of time. That's not kicking it in a day or a week. Anyway, I'm going to continue.
He says, Mr. Conway, second time asking this, respect and feedback is not shown by Wargaming in the way you process surveys after closing a question 1.
Sorry, what?
I don't understand the question. Can you
Can you
provide
repeat?
some context for this for me, please? So in the next Transformers collaboration, will there be a chance to get the stuff from the first event? I missed Megatron.
Something more. Some features have bugs that are discovered and are postponed, go back to the design stage, etc. Yes. So for those that don't know about code, when you're writing computer code, computers are extremely stupid. All they do is what you tell them to do. And sometimes if you're in a game and that game is like 5-6 years old, you may have hundreds of thousands or even millions of lines of code. And you put in one line of code and you think it's saying exactly what you want it to say, but it turns out that there's 2 lines of code up about 10,000 lines that way that somehow take that and change it, and then it means something different, and then something breaks. The process of finding that and fixing it is awful. Yeah, legacy code is the devil. Legacy code means like old code that might have been programmed by some dude that worked there 3 years ago, that hopefully he left very good notes about what he did, because if he didn't, then you have to go out there and perform the logic puzzle of trying to figure out what they did so that you can then interact with it and track it all down. So yeah, definitely bugs suck. And they can be extremely awkward to figure out, especially in very large, complicated situations.
It would be nice if I could get it this time. I can't comment, but based on I can't promise you about our future release because I don't know off the top of my head. I can tell you that based on what we have done in the past with other collaborations, the chances are high that you will be able to obtain that content again.
Oh, this is the work in progress thing. So I just saw that's probably what gets addressed.
How can you not be fully informed about what? Please, guys, if you ask questions like
No, he's probably asking me about the little white mouse topic. Look, I'm sorry. I just have to just to give you context. There is a shit ton of things to know about our game on various different levels, and I'd rather be honest with you and tell you that I don't have the full context right now, because the little white mouse case is a very complex case that wasn't handled, for example, by our team. It was, like North American office working with little white mouse and St. Petersburg getting involved. And if I don't have the feeling that I can provide any useful information because I simply don't have it or I don't have the full context, I will rather tell you this than make up shit. That's my understanding of being professional, that I rather tell you, sorry, I would love to give you the information. I don't have it with me. Maybe I can follow up on that comment in the future, or you can also, for example, ask our North American staff that are a bit more involved in this topic, or we can just get messaging for next time when we get like the full context of the situation. But it's very hard to be on top of what everything that is happening in the specific regions, in our region, and also to make a public statement about it, because all of what I'm saying here can be always taken out of context, right? It can be clipped, it can be misused, and I don't want to be that guy. So I rather say, sorry guys, don't know, and I hope you appreciate that honesty.
I just want to point something out here. 2 things. I used to play World of Warcraft a lot, like way back in the day. I literally spent years logged into and playing that game. I don't know how far I am on World of Warships, but I assume it's also pretty bad. But anyway, I used to follow developers interacting on the forums a lot. And I don't know if World of Warships is where soon TM came from, but I kind of, or not World of Warships, World of Warcraft was where soon TM came from. I kind of think it was, basically because there was a developer or something that was talking about something he was working on, just, casually, because the topic came up and they were just, shooting the shit on the forum. Well, wouldn't you know it, there are hundreds of thousands of people on the forum, and wouldn't you know it, there are hundreds of thousands of people that remember what he said on the forum. And when that concept or feature or idea just didn't happen to get implemented because it was something that, he was dicking around with and thought might be cool, but it didn't pan out, it didn't make it into the game, suddenly you have a section of the player base that's pissed off because they didn't get a thing they thought they were going to get. So in response to that, companies learned real quick, you don't talk about things if it's not going to show up. And sometimes, a company might even commit to something because they really think they can commit to it. They've put in the thought and effort, and it turns out that it just doesn't work, and they have to back off, and then they have to start apologizing because there's some people that just, they latch onto it and they want it. So similarly, what he's saying, I mean, it's the same thing. If you're asking him for information and he doesn't have it, if he makes something up, there will be tens or hundreds of thousands of people that will save that clip and bring that clip up over and over and over again, as opposed to him just saying, I'd love to help you, but I just don't know. I can look it up and I can try to get back to you, but I just don't know. So one is much safer in public relations terms. And in general, it's always best to just be honest. If you can be honest, cool. If you can't say something, don't say something. I mean, it's just a basic rule in life.
Yes. Virtual Senpai, I think suggestions for changes to contributor program are probably best done on the Discord rather than in chat. But I'm just going to say, because I know one of the points you mentioned are, and it's something else asked, like, will you let contributors stream?
I'm sorry, hold on. Wait.
We can just get messaging.
I
next
missed
time
whatever
we
this
get,
was. I'm
the
going
full
to restart
context
it.
of the situation, but it's very hard to be on top of everything that is happening in the specific regions, in our region, and also to make a public statement about it, because all of what I'm saying here can be always taken out of context, right? It can be clipped, it can be misused, and I don't want to be that guy. So I rather say, sorry guys, don't know, and I hope you appreciate that honesty.
Yes. Virtual Senpai, I think suggestions for changes to contributor program are probably best done on the Discord rather than in chat. But I'm just going to say, because I know one of the points you mentioned are, and it's something else asked, like, will you let contributors stream work in progress ships again? I highly doubt it. The reason that we changed that is because it didn't provide, it created stress. Created false expectations, it created confusion because you got to see so many different versions of ships, and it was a mess. Unfortunately, I think it's not going to come back for the near future.
So I don't remember when this happened, but I do remember I had the Alaska, and I liked the Alaska, and this was before Puerto Rico came out, so this is like 2 years ago. CCs used to make videos, like literally, they would make videos of gameplay and their thoughts and stuff on ships that were still in testing, ships that were still being worked on. So one week you'd get a video about how this ship is underpowered and it's terrible. And then the next week you get a video from somebody else talking about how the ship is too powerful in its current state and it needs to be nerfed because between point A and point B it got buffed. And then by the time it comes to live server, it was nerfed down, to where maybe it's balanced or something, but it doesn't correspond to the video that you listened to, potentially even a week before. I think the German destroyer line, the newer destroyer line, the one that's like the sniper destroyers, the Elbing and stuff, I think that one went through, just the ones that I'm aware of, I think it went through like 3 or 4 different revisions in a very short period of time leading up to its release. So if you can imagine, if you're showing that on stream or if you're making videos about that, literally you have to make a new video every 3 to 5 days because it got changed again. And then it gets changed again. And then it gets changed again. So it's like, if it's in the testing process, it might be OP, but it's okay because it's in the testing process and they can nerf it. If it's underpowered, that's okay because if it's in the testing process, they can buff it. They can screw with it up, down, and sideways to get it to where, okay, this fits, this is comfortable, and then that's what they release. And as far as CCs go, there's eventually a point where they'll make an announcement to us saying, hey, this ship is final now. So if you want to, make content about it or, make your views and opinions and stuff and make a video, there will still be an NDA release date, but you as a CC know, okay, I can this is final. It's not going to be dicked with more. I can do the thing. So, I mean, would it be cool to be able to show test ships on stream? Absolutely, it'd be cool, but it would really suck to show you something that looks just brokenly overpowered, and then literally 3 days later, it's not. It's not helpful. It's not helpful because it misrepresents the game and it misrepresents the ship. And you might have people that buy something because they think it's brokenly overpowered, only to find out that it got nerfed or something. Okay.
The Chica just asking him because we didn't catch his question. When we're going to fix the problems with stats numbers? So stats numbers is an external website. So I guess there's a problem with the API, and we would have to check what's the problem with the API, if there's any problem with the website, or whether the problem is website based. So I would get in touch with the owner of the site. Okay, would it be considerable that there are more operations of the week? Maybe in the future, at least for the very near future. I know that there's not going to be any more operations.
I just want to say I would love if there were more operations. I'm not a real big. I don't know how to say this. I'm probably more of a PvE player than I am a PvP player, which is probably why I'm more supportive in general. Like with my carrier play, that's how I tend to run. So I've played all the operations. I haven't played them to death, but I mean, I've played them all. So if there were ever more, that'd be cool. But I think if I understand correctly, the North American server really likes operations, or at least has like a niche, and then other servers just don't. So unfortunately, I'm sure they have a whole bunch of shit that they've got on their menu, and I doubt operations are ever going to be visited anytime in the near future, which is sad. But I mean, if it's a global game, and if there's a subset of a single part of the globe that really is passionate about it, but that's kind of it. I mean, let's be honest, you're not designing the game for 3% of the players. You're designing the game for all of the players. So yeah, it is a little sad in that sense.
And Harris Bosnia says, I was watching you for an hour but got no reward of 1 hour for 250. It's not research points, it's community tokens. Can you give them to me somehow? What you have to do to get them is you go to your Twitch drops inventory. If you are on your web interface, like on a browser,
right.
You go to the upper right corner, you click on your profile, then you just scroll down, there should be somewhere inventory, you click on it, and then you have to claim it there. And if it's not updated, press Control 5, it should refresh the page. And
so I'm kind of skipping
as soon as you log into the game. That means if you're currently logged into the game, you will have...
This is a helpful question, but...
So we said we would talk briefly about Missouri. The issue is, and I think this is where we made a big mistake, we probably...
I guess there's a question. It was to talk briefly about Missouri, so he's talking about Missouri, in case you missed it, because warp speed.
Should have just cloned Missouri and made a new Missouri, left an old Missouri as it is. The problem is that the way that our system works is that at the moment, a mission multiplier can never interact with additional multipliers given by flags and signals, etc. It just doesn't. The system doesn't do it. So we'd have to completely rewrite the system, and we would also then have to add an exception for this one ship where it's different. So there may be something that we can work out in the future to kind of solve this issue. Either way, Missouri would keep the bonus. Her bonus. So the issue is that we can't add it as a multiplier that stacks with signals and flags, right? So we did our best based on the data that we had to pick a modifier that is high enough that it fixes the loss of credit income even for people who use full signals and camouflages on an average battle for them, right? So because of the way that math works, you can never find a value that will work for every single battle result. It's mathematically impossible, because the higher the battle result, the higher the modifier would then have to be, because it doesn't stack with the other ones. So our challenge is to find the right modifier that gives a bonus that on average for your average battle, right, taking into account your good ones, your bad ones, will give you the same amount of credits or more as it did before. This will have the added benefit, because of the way that multipliers and math works, that if you don't use all signals and camouflages, you will be consistently earning more in Missouri than you did before if you weren't using those modifiers, because we have to take those into account. We chose an initial modifier that was 17%. We've already upped that to 20%, and we're very much waiting for you guys to just play Missouri after the change, so we can get more of the live data and so we can see if it works. The problem is that the way that just credits are calculated in World of Warships is very difficult. There's a lot of values happening included in the background, so it's not of an easy fix for us to come up with a number that just works. We kind of have to choose the number that we think will work, then we have to look at the data, and if it doesn't work, we will increase the modifier. You can see we did this just on, well, I think Monday morning. It's a server-side thing that we can change because it's a mission, so it's quite easy for us to do. So we're, go play Missouri, and then we're going to go and tweak that value a little bit more. And I think we also said that we would share some of the data in the background with you guys on the dev blog, so that you can have an idea of what we're talking about.
So I just want to point out a few things here. One, there's a significant amount of time that he spent explaining this, and it's honestly because it was awkward. As CCs, Little White Mouse, when she was aware of this situation, like when they were saying, hey, we're going to create this combat mission thing and it's going to adjust the numbers. I mean, just being straight with it, like Little White Mouse, okay, sure, this isn't going to go well. I mean, because a lot of people have the opinion that this shit's not going to go well. So she was approaching it from like, I'm going to get, she put out a forum post where she basically crowdsourced information. She crowdsourced data to try to like rough estimate the base credit modifier for the ship, etc. And she had made, just for those that don't know, but to get it out there, she'd made a very complex, like a very detailed example with the Missouri that had flags and had camos and all this stuff, had all of it, and asked if the Missouri makes this in this situation, what is it going to have after the mission? And the response was, it's going to have more money than, what you're stating. It'll have as much or more money is what we're going to have. Now, I have Asperger's. I have autism. So sometimes when I say something, I'm saying something literal. I'm saying something absolutely just straight. And context and stuff goes out the window. So there's a part of me that really empathizes with, the miscommunication, which I realize can come off as a meme, but kind of isn't a meme because there's literal translation differences. And also as a developer, you might literally know how it's being implemented and answer a question because you know how the result is going to be, but in that answer, it might not give the path to the result. And in this specific instance, that became a problem because all of the English-speaking community contributors, at least I would assume, read that as, oh, it's going to affect, the ship in a way that interacts with flags and camos. And it turned out it was not. It was implemented in a way that's completely independent of that. Basically, it was a brute force solution. That actually is one of the things that came to a head, was the miscommunication, because it's like, well, you said it was going to do this. Well, no, we didn't say that. Well, yes, you did. No, we really didn't say that. And one side knew what they were talking about, and the other side assumed what they were talking about, and it just doesn't move forward. Especially in a charged atmosphere, that's not going to go anywhere good. And it's like, again, miscommunication can feel like a meme, but literally that was a miscommunication. It was only 2 days later when I had a chance to step into voice chat with two devs, because I was basically trying to teach them like, hey, I think you might be thinking how to, like, this is implemented correctly, but if you just change the code a little to do this, and like, I'm writing a logic statement for them, and they're like, bro, we're not doing that. We're making it so that it gives more money to give either as much or more money than they had before. Wait, you mean like really basic about it? Just like really just blunt about it? Yes. Oh. And it's like, clunk, it all slotted into place, and it's like, oh, son of a bitch. And that's one of the things where, it's just, it can be tough to decipher all that shit. But anyway, I did end up I was able to announce, that discussion on Lord Zath's stream on Sunday. So that was cool. I got to get the word out there. I made a video to get the word out. But I wanted to talk about that because it ended up being such an awkward situation, and because it resulted in, resentment in some cases, which sucks because it was an honest miscommunication. And it's like, well, son of a bitch. Anyway, I'm gonna continue. My mind is starting to slip, and we're leaning in on that 4-hour mark, which is pretty on par for Ahskance reacts to something, and it takes way too damn long. But anyway, we're gonna continue.
Can we expect really new gameplay modes instead of more and more ships and still the same old modes? Well, we did. It depends on what you consider to be a new mode. We actually have testing right now. I mean, you can try it on PT, right? You can try the convoy mode, for example, which is a new game mode. We did have, for example, Grand Battles mode. We do very oftentimes we also run special event modes, right? They are completely different. We haven't done that much in that regard. Ooh, that was close. Not because we don't want to, but right now we used a lot of resources to actually work, for example, on submarines. And I hope we're going to have more cool modes in the future. So I think you should definitely go try the convoy mode on PT and give us your feedback. And then more news about new stuff we'll share probably in the next Waterline.
Should we implement Bogsy into the stream?
Implement into the system,
Look,
sure.
guys, I didn't have any time to
Okay, so Bogsy time, Bogs Arena, which I'm actually going to shout out. That's not fully spelled out. Shout out. Bogsy time, sorry. If you know me, you probably know Bogsy. And the reason for that is because Bogsy started streaming before I did. I was in TNG. I streamed in the Discord, but I didn't stream publicly. He started streaming. You know, it was exciting. It was cool. I subbed to his channel way back in the day. I think it was like 14, 15 months ago. And one of the things that honestly got me out of my shell was casting, shoutcasting King of the Seas. And I did that with Bogsy. He's a good dude. And he's a beautiful man. So check him out. He's chill. He likes to run kind of a fun stream, and he's got kind of that buoyant energy like a radio host. So you can definitely check him out. Now, this is the Twitch video right here. This is the stream, the VOD or whatever. And he comes on, I think Crisanto plays Zhao, just to show, hey, look, I'm able to play Zhao and do Zhao things. So I'm pretty sure that's going to come on there. And I don't know if there are any other relevant questions. I haven't sat down and watched this for the raw entertainment value. But pretty much immediately, I had a job interview earlier today to work at a factory, which I'm going to be honest, I'm scared to do it because it's working on 30, 40, and 20-year-old machines that have been repaired multiple times, have been makeshift repaired multiple times. They have a head tech that's leaving in 6 months, so hopefully he can transmit all the knowledge, assuming I actually get hired. But that sounds like one chaotic explosion of a situation. But when I came out, I turned on this World of Warships thing, and it's like, oh wow, they're doing a Q&A. What the hell? Oh, this is really interesting. So my first thought after hearing this was like, should I record all this and chop it up into pieces and put time links and stuff to the questions? I'm not an editor, and I'll be honest, it was actually intimidating to me, the thought of leaving my computer recording something for an hour and I wouldn't be able to touch my computer for an hour. What am I going to do? So instead I just thought, fuck it, we'll do it live, as the meme is. And that's what we did. So this concludes the relevant portion of the Ahskance Reacts RAR, but I will, open it up to Q&A, as I tend to do after I do something long. So if you've been in the chat for a while, if you got questions, you can ask some questions. I'll give it a 10, 20 minutes or something of my time, and then I'll just close it off. Clip the thing, kick it up to YouTube, put it on the forum so people can scream at me, and meh, you do a little meh symbol, and move on with my life. But there were a lot of people on the North American forum that wanted a response. There were a lot of people that wanted, we wanted a more wide-ranging apology. We wanted this situation addressed. We wanted this situation addressed. And it's if you're writing a statement, that statement has to live and defend itself for the rest of time. Because once you write the statement, it's out there. But if you're talking with somebody, and you're having a conversation, you can at least, clarify something in the middle of the conversation. And that's what they did. They went on, they had a Q&A, and I mean, they took questions straight up and they answered the questions straight up. And it's like, I just didn't want that to be very buried in a Twitch VOD that nobody was going to watch, because that would suck, because they had really good interactions and they had really good information that they got out. So I thought, I'll record it, I'll kick it up on the Facebook, YouTube, whatever. I'm tired. So that's what I'm going to do.